Warhammer x LOTM, The Black Emperor by author Chao Emo. Chapter 921-940. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And those who want to support me, I have a Patreon channel. Get early access to video on Patreon. 921. If Lord Nimrod were here, he would surely be able to dissuade his father. Ultima Segmentum. The 125th Expeditionary Fleet roared out of the warp and entered the boundary of the Olympia galaxy. On the Bridge of Iron Blood, Warsmith and his captains gathered around the holographic strategy table. The holographic imagery shows Olympia and satellite images, with stepped mountain ranges scattered across the surface, twisted into broken lines by crustal activity. Thousands of lakes are scattered among the valleys, appearing as patches of green and blue. Perturabo stared intently at the data tags marking the planet, his gaze fixed on the pre-action markers with near madness, yet he still sensed his trident's halberd approaching from behind. Phrixus, how's the progress? As per your command, the 7 battalions have assembled on the flight decks of the Iron Blood, the Great Megara, the Putros' Revenge, and the Iron Tyrant. The latest information I have is that the governor of Damokos passed away 3 months ago, and in the weeks that followed, there was controversy over his succession. A small-scale war broke out between the 4 cities. When Tessig's fleet was ordered to recruit new soldiers, it discovered that there was no central authority on the home planet with which to communicate, and our supply requests were rejected. Flax restrained the urge to directly question his father's plans, knowing that any dissent against Iron Lord would be severely punished. Especially now, after more than a century of endless war against the aliens in the western frontier of the Empire, without any glory of submission, his father's patience has been exhausted. He was already furious and eager to release the pent-up frustration of being forced away from the main battlefield and having no chance to accumulate honor. Flax was able to maintain Trident's position by always following orders. He could only offer the best advice he could give by gently explaining the current situation. There are many separatists, but their opposition is not unified. Only a few people want to break away, but everyone demands change. If we support a certain faction, we can plunge them into a full-blown civil war. Phrixus, by asking this question, you show that you disagree with father's decision, questioned Hakor, another member of the Trident. Having risen through the ranks, he still remembered Phrixus's arrogance. His current weakness and doubt are precisely the opportunity to bring him down. Don't make assumptions, Flax cautioned. What are your plans? Perturabo gazed at the world that had adopted him for a long time with his icy blue eyes. Send a message to our home planet, we will negotiate with them under the banner of Aaron. Phrixus breathed a slight sigh of relief, his gamble had succeeded for the time being. Olympia is his home, the mother planet of the Iron Warriors, and should not be destroyed by his father's murderous intent. The Iron Warriors landed at dawn on the mountainside of the majestic Mount Aderini. The warsmiths cleared large areas of forest and leveled the ground with rock saws and hot melt cutting machines, achieving a perfect flatness with an error margin of 1 mm. Perturabo ordered steps to be carved out of the mountainside, leading directly to the highway 2 kilometers below, the Paracontia Avenue. Many years ago, he walked along the Paracontia Avenue, heading straight for Caldus, and began his journey to unify the world. Before the sun had even set, warsmiths had already fulfilled Primarch's request. The nobles of the city-state of Olympia had also arrived and were waiting at the top of the steps leading to the tent for an audience with Perturabo. The steel giant appeared at sunset, surveying the mortals below the steps. Perturabo identified familiar surnames from the coats of arms of the nobles: Demek, Fok, Oreston, Ptolemy, Krastov. They searched for seats on the sandy ground of their camp but found none, so they angrily complained to the Iron Warriors around them. Their ancestors' armies had all been defeated by them, yet these nobles still exuded an undisguised sense of pride superiority. The only seat belonged to Perturabo, who walked toward the enormous throne he had brought from Iron Blood. Perturabo has decided that this will be the last time he rides it. He no longer likes Olympia's style, and he doesn't have much of a fondness for art anymore. Perturabo looked at the nobles lined up before him, about half of whom wore red ribbons on their right arms, while a few wore blue ribbons. Factions. His superhuman intellect combined the emblems with the ancient Pentuic League and the 6 cities of Achaia, respectively. A century and a half ago, these two groups were staunchly opposed to his federation. Perturabo foresaw this as a sign of division. He looked at the 2 alliances and said, "You each choose a representative to speak." A woman stepped forward, and her messenger called out, "Demacia of Arcos." Primarch, Perturabo. Demacia declared directly, "We, the 6 cities of Achaia, beg you to join us. Kill the Pentuic dogs, and we will regain peace." Blue Ribbon, you look just like your great-great-great-grandmother, Perturabo said coldly. You are not as clever as her. When I arrived at the door of Arcos with Lacos, soldiers and Ironbelt Legion, she opened the door to welcome me. Her wisdom has allowed your city to stand to this day, but I do not see the same thoughtfulness in you. He ignored the confused and frightened woman and looked to the other side. Red Ribbons, you've resurrected that pathetic organization, the Pentuic Alliance. What do you want? We only seek to protect ourselves, the Empire has already made us bleed, Didymus Diogenes said. We, the Pentuic Alliance, demand the return of our planet. Before the Empire came, only a few dozen people were conscripted each century, but now thousands are conscripted every year. The man behind him saw that Perturabo's expression was calm. We are proud of our independence. Traitor, Demacia seized the opportunity and rebuked. The 6 cities of Achaya hope to rebuild proper authorities as soon as possible, provided we can discuss the heavy burden that conscription has placed on us. Perturabo's eyes blazed with fury. This is not negotiation. You're not petitioning, you're ordering me around. You have been using me all along, telling me what to do, until my real father came. Now, you have forgotten the order I established. After Damaco's death, you should respect the right of succession. The new order, Didymus said disdainfully. We will no longer succumb to the hereditary dictatorship of the entire planet and allow empires to enslave our spirits. Your empire is of no benefit to Olympia. No. Perturabo suppressed his anger. Unity, peace, advanced technology, and a life free from war and external threats. Without me, every mother in Olympia would now pray that Black Judge would never come into her child's life. What have you lost? You freed us from one fear, only to replace it with an even greater one. Didymus protested. You have taken our children away, Demacia said, adding that the 6 cities of Achaya and the Pentuic Alliance shared the same claim. You took them away and sent them to their deaths. You and your emperor are no better than the Black Judge. You took far more people than the ancient lords of the Mir Tower cluster stole. Perturabo calmly responded to the accusation, your son is a hero. Demacia smiled sneer, tell me what your emperor said, tell me that he values the sacrifices of our people. Don't use my father against me, Perturabo roared. The nobles all trembled, and Didymus's face turned pale. For us to reconsider remaining in the empire, our situation must change. Do you really think Olympia is anything special, just because my father found me here? Perturabo's face was frosty. You did not witness the world I burned down, the alien races I exterminated. If you witness the horrors of the void, you will offer your children without complaint. All the blood has only one purpose, to protect humanity. If you do not submit to the Emperor's rule, you will suffer the same wrath of the Legion as other disobedient worlds. Perturabo's threat left Didymus stammering. This is a negotiation. He tried his best to suppress his fear once he realized it was showing. We are conducting arbitration based on the ancient teachings of Aaron, yet you are threatening us with violence. Negotiations. Perturabo scoffed. There is no point in talking about traitors. I made my judgment the moment I heard about your betrayal. I find you guilty. Phrixus opened his mouth, but said nothing. The father had already made the decision. He devised a plan of destruction, but I tried to change his mind. Phrixus thought bitterly. A figure suddenly flashed through his mind. If Lord Nimrod were here, he would surely be able to dissuade his father. No, father now, dares not. Phrixus didn't want to use the word, dare, to describe his father. How could the Iron Lord fear anything? But after Nicaea, the father did change. He no longer mentioned Lord Nimrod. He even demoted him to a mere Iron Warrior simply because Atlas the Watcher mentioned Lord Nimrod's name. He became increasingly silent and stopped going to his private room. Perturabo rose from his throne, raised his arm, and pointed at Caldus. Look, call. The wind howled. A fiery storm erupted from the towering nuclear cloud over the city of Caldus, sending plumes of black smoke billowing into the sky. Olympia's fate will be destruction. Those who obey will be forgiven by me, and those who disobey will be destroyed or enslaved. If you are not willing to serve the Emperor as Libertas, then serve me in chains. Didymus shouted, Arany. We come under the banner of Arany. Perturabo raised his arm and abruptly broke the fluttering flag. Your customs mean nothing to me. Loyalty is the only virtue I cherish. If you don't have loyalty, this world is worthless. He gave the Iron Warriors the order, kill them. But do not damage their heads, send them back to their city. Phrixus gazed at the cold figures of the Iron Warriors, and he knew that everything had changed. My father in the past, though stern, was not cold-hearted. He had a smile on his face as he watched the performance at Vostroya's Grand Theater. When did things start to change? It was a century ago. The Emperor dispatched them to the western frontier of the Empire, to wage an endless war against countless alien races across numerous star systems. The Iron Warriors were reduced to mere battering rams, and no one ever saw the sacrifices they made for the Empire. Every brutal war against the aliens on the frontier caused my father to shed a drop of blood. He grew increasingly silent, and the only time he could relax was when he was constantly refining the armor he was forging for Lord Nimrod. But he was still not satisfied and did not give the gift. Until Nikaya. The father witnessed Lord Nimrod and Lord Magnus being judged, but was ordered by the Emperor to stand by and watch. He returned hastily to the western frontier as if he had suffered a defeat. He wanted to pursue the magnificent creation he had learned about from the aliens, hoping to forget everything by studying it, but then he heard news of his home planet's rebellion. Greater than 922 Nimrod will rebuke my excuses, and he will not forgive my betrayal. The royal palace of Lakos in Olympia. Perturabo strode across the arched door, his mind flashing back to the first day he was brought there and met his adoptive father, Damokos. In the center of the hall sits a spirit tablet, carved from stone according to Olympia tradition. The coffin above the spirit frame is made of high-quality crystal, which is then melted and processed into a glass-like material. Inside the coffin lies the remains of Damokos, the former tyrant of Lakos and governor of Olympia. Perturabo's boots creaked as he placed his hand on the coffin lid. Damokos's body was sallow and withered, and his corpse had no mechanical prosthetics. Perturabo took a deep breath and gently closed his eyes. Father. You never called him that when he was alive, why are you calling him that now? Perturabo looked in the direction from which the aged voice came, where Caliphon sat on the throne of Lakos between the twin god kings. His pupils constricted, his playful and clever older sister had transformed into an ugly old woman. Elder sister. Now I'm your sister, and he's your father. Caliphne's lips curled into a smirk. Only rebellion reminds you that we are your family. Perturabo snorted, you think I don't know. He's been plotting against me behind the scenes all along. He is the one who caused Olympia's current predicament. He never believed in the dream of the Empire, and I never believed he would be completely loyal. Quote, you knew what he was doing, but you didn't stop him, California said. He is not a threat, Perturabo said. This is just a posture he adopts. He can never give up being a strongman, he wants to be a ruler. This is your fault. Carafin gazed out of the palace at the billowing black smoke. You tacitly allow him to encourage others to believe that we can acquire libertas. Perturabo approached his foster sister, what about you? Do you also think Olympia should belong to libertas? Your atrocities have forced me to think this way, Caliphne said, listening to the screams. You were once regarded as a gift from the gods, but now we know that you are a scourge to this world. Carafne looked at Perturabo inquisitively. But I think you do more than that. You learned that you allowed your father to play his power games out of love and to protect his pride. Perturabo remained noncommittal, saying, now that he's dead, his world will also be destroyed. You don't need to be sad, Caliphne comforted her. My brother Heracles tried to overthrow him, and he drowned him in a wine vat. And Andos. He's always been the best among you. Perturabo asked about another person he cared about. He wouldn't admit that he privately thought Andos was better than him, at least in the realm of art. Andos refused the emperor's medicine, buried himself in his workshop, and died 90 years ago. If it weren't for you, he would have become a master craftsman. You made everything he did pale in comparison, but he never hated you. Feel sorry. Carafne coldly questioned, you care about nothing but your utopian dream. We are irrelevant to you, we are just stumbling blocks on your path to perfection. Perturabo's icy blue eyes dimmed. I've recently realized something. Damokos once called my drawings my foolishness, and I was very angry at the time, but now I realize that he may be right. Maybe I inherited my ambition from my biological father. Moreover, his idea is correct. The Empire is no good, it was my father's folly. I believed him because I wanted him to be real, just as I wanted my great creation to exist in the future Empire. The steel mask that Perturabo maintained cracked. A tear rolled down her cheek. All the suffering he had endured overwhelmed him. His father ignored him, and his legion was neglected for a long century. His descendants suffered heavy casualties but did not receive the honor they had won. His dream remained elusive, growing ever more distant. Crude iron may look strong, but it is as fragile as a reed, and so are you. Carafne gazed into Perturabo's eyes. You and your father never understood that the people cannot be forced to realize your ideals. The people are far more complex than your calculations. You build the world according to your own ideas, and in the end you will only find that the biggest flaw is the people in it. Then, in order to save your creations and salvage your plans, you begin to destroy them. Your father is nothing but a lord of the grave, Caliphne said disdainfully. In your attempt to complete a world he couldn't complete, you'll only unleash your terror upon us. You cannot accept any compromise. Her words were sharp as a knife. You sacrifice your offspring to prove a wrong point, and then you get angry when no one notices your sacrifice. Your willfulness has cost this planet an entire generation of young people. You can't see empty schools anymore. The mother, who gazes at cosmos day and night, and the wife, grieving the loss of her husband. When you wield the butcher's knife and cut down the delegation that brought you the truth, you have lost everything. The people don't know what's good for them, Perturabo argued. Karifni shook her head. Great tyrants rule by the blessings of the people, efficient ones by fear, but none achieve anything by indifference. You are full of resentment, and you reject the people's love and respect. My brother Conrad Kurz did even worse, and I'm not going to ruin everything like him, Perturabo said. I will punish betrayal and rebuild Olympia. Karifni chuckled. You actually compare yourself to the worst of your brothers to excuse the heinous crimes you've committed. Correcting the error means stopping recruitment and listening to the people's grievances with a forgiving heart, not massacres. One of your new brothers is a close friend named Nimrod. Would he really slaughter his own people like that? If he knew the crime you committed today, would he think you did the right thing? Shut up, Perturabo roared. Calliope took a step toward him without fear, her gaze sweeping over Perturabo's entire body. Where did the boy who hoped war would end go? Perturabo lowered his head dejectedly. Nobody wants us. The Emperor makes me do the most thankless and arduous tasks. My children are sent to fight the worst terrors and to undertake the most difficult tasks. Our talents are ignored and our strength is reduced to rubble. My father neglected me, no one sang the praises of my children's achievements, and no one remembered our victories. Although you ignore us, I have been watching you, Califni continued. I have always believed that your following the Emperor was a mistake. He was a tyrant like everyone else, and his wars destroyed your homeland. More importantly, he harmed you. Calliope raised her hand, trying to touch Perturabo's heart, but the height difference made it impossible to reach it. Perturabo gazed at his aged foster sister, who had withered away. I have studied your campaigns carefully. For the past century, you have always done things in the most difficult ways and the most painful ways. You portray yourself as a martyr, extending your bleeding wrists to show them how you mutilate yourself. You are too arrogant to be honest about your needs. You want everyone to pay attention to you and shout, Great Perturabo. How hard he works without complaint. The exoskeleton supporting Carrie phone creaked beneath her skirt. You and your pathetic pursuits have plunged this world into rebellion. You've always pretended to be as cold and hard as steel, but deep down you crave love more than anything. You are the most foolish idiot I have ever seen. Your crimes today will not be forgiven by your father, your brother, Nimrod. I told you to shut up. Perturabo roared as he grabbed Calliope by the throat and lifted her high into the air. Sister, I'm not stupid. Perturabo coldly snapped her neck. You are too old and have lived too long. Perturabo gazed into Karifni's eyes and saw neither fear of death nor self-loathing or contempt in his sister's eyes, but rather a deep pity. Click. Karifni's head was broken and hung down. Perturabo gently placed her body back on the throne, and the gushing blood from her mouth stung Perturabo's eyes. He suddenly took a step back, as if facing some ferocious beast. He walked quickly outside, as if fleeing from judgment. The firelight leapt into his eyes. Lacos is burning fiercely. Perturabo watched as blood-soaked civilians stumbled and fled through the streets, while the Iron Warriors advanced methodically, carrying out their extermination campaign. A line of civilians, chained together, were dragged along by a war smith. Perturabo crashed. It wasn't his physical body, he understood his own body as well as he understood robot. It was a part he had previously neglected, which he referred to as the mind in Order Shadow, and Thousand Suns. Years of brutal experiences had dulled his mind, but at this moment his heart became sharp again, able to perceive everything he was doing. I've become Conrad Kurz, and his excuse is insanity, Primarch murmured, his voice hoarse. What's my excuse? A bad temper. Nimrod would rebuke my excuses. He will never forgive my betrayal. I let him down in Nicaea, and I watched him be judged. I. Perturabo's voice abruptly stopped as he stared at the approaching trident halberd Phrixus. As you command, this city is ours. Those suitable to be servants have all been taken away, and we have begun testing all young men who are suitable to join the Legion. 74% of the people have already. Enough, Perturabo roared. Phrixus was taken aback when he saw the tears streaming down his father's face and his expression as if he had done something wrong. He had never seen the Iron Lord like this before. Phrixus, what have we done? His father's tone was tinged with doubt. For the first time, he questioned his own decision. We have done as you instructed, just as you expected. This is not my request, Perturabo denied. I killed my foster sister, I destroyed my own home world. I swore to the Emperor that I would bring the human world back to the embrace of Terra, but now I have broken my vow and resorted to slaughter to resolve a problem that could have been solved through diplomacy. My father will not forgive me, he will, and my brothers will condemn me. It has come to this, my father. No one else can see you like this, Phrixus said loudly. You asked your warrior to impose punishment, and we have given you this world without complaint. If they see you so weak, it will shake their resolve. Tell me, someone hasn't been following my orders completely, Perturabo said hopefully. There are some dissenters, Phrixus replied. Perturabo wiped away his tears and took Phrixus's hand. You are the most loyal of all my sons. Primarch's hands tightly enveloped Phrixus's hands, which were clad in cataphractii terminator, like an adult holding a child's hand. Perturabo released his hand, and Phrixus froze for a moment, feeling the lingering warmth of their first intimate touch. Relay my order, the looting must cease immediately. Leave the survivors we didn't take with us and order them to rebuild Olympia. Ask all those who are willing to serve us in Auxilia, and they will regain Libertas. The Thunderhawk roared back to Iron Blood. Iron Blood hastily departed the Olympia system without replying to Forge World. Communication messages from Incaridian and Firestorm Star. Greater than 923 Nimrod, perhaps he can save his race from destruction. The largest dome in the Ulthway world shimmered with a pale light, and it was translucent, enveloping many crystal trees. Most Eldar would spend their entire lives without ever reaching this shimmering forest. Without guidance, they would get lost in the winding paths, and even if led through them many times, they would never know the way to this place. The song of death echoed within the dome, filled with the ghosts of bygone years. This is a land of death, and every crystal tree is a real imprint left by the departed soothsayer. Of course, the mark also exists on the supernatural level. Eldred Ulthrin sat alone in the middle of the forest, holding a long staff in his right hand and resting his left hand on the trunk of a crystal tree. His soul departed from his body, gathering the power left behind by the soothsayers, and peered into the threads of fate. He let his consciousness drift in the tides, the echoes of ancient races slid past him. The fate of the new races shines like the stars, and Yuslin knows they call themselves human. Slouda and his clansmen would contemptuously call them monkeys, while the early inhabitants called them the Menkai people. They were a short-lived, a barbaric race. They emerged from the cradle of their gestation and conquered their Sol system. Now, on a massive expedition, they absorb the fragments lost from the early days of civilization and ruthlessly destroy any races that stand in their way, including even their own lost kin. Yuslin saw the seeds of human destruction planted in their hearts through sheer belligerence. He had already foreseen the demise of his people and the ultimate victory of the Chaos Gods. Yuslin knew their course wouldn't change because of their inevitable demise, but Menkai would never accept their fate. They would always try to change the unavoidable ending. He didn't care about the survival of the young Menkai race, but similar omens reminded him of the birth of Sai Lanzresh and the catastrophe caused by the destruction of the Eldar Empire. The more intense visions indicate that once the chaotic fall takes shape, it will cause a massive catastrophe for both reality and warp. Yuslin witnessed bloodshed and despair, but he also saw flickering embers. An uncertain ray of light in the vast future, surrounded by layers of amorphous, twisted, gigantic monsters. They brandished their vicious claws, trying to extinguish the lamp. Yuslin failed to penetrate them and clearly capture the picture of the threads of fate. Yuslin prayed to the departed soothsayers, seeking their guidance to reach the crystal dome and, with their help, capture the light of hope. His soul, following the threads of fate, once again arrived at the edge of the formless light. Ordinary soothsayers cannot grasp the trajectory of fate as precisely as he does, finding the same omens. But Yuslin followed the path of soothsayer, having guided his race through the great catastrophe of the Eldar Empire of Sai Lanthresh. The enemy's claws and teeth danced and spun, opening their hideous maws to reveal their dazzling fangs. Yuslin calmed himself down, preventing himself from feeling any fear. Fear fuels the sadistic power of Sai Lanzaresh's minions. A burst of dazzling light erupted from his body, shooting outwards like a meteor shower. Ah! The twisted, evil gods' claws screech as they fled, their eyes hungrily fixed on the source of the shimmering light, the delicious souls of the Eldar. Yuslin seized the opportunity, channeled his will, and flew toward the center of the distorted light. He saw the past, a tall and mighty giant with a large amber eye in the center of his breastplate. Horus Lupercal, Warmaster of the Monkai race. On a decaying, desolate planet, Horus wields his longsword, gleaming with golden light, cleaving through the onrushing dead. The distorted green light of the Plague Lord filled the rotting eye sockets of the dead, making their limbs abnormally active. The disastrous fate of the Menkai race shrouded him like a shroud. Yuslin's thoughts faltered. The expeditionary hero of the Menkai race, the savior of the lost world, the destroyer of countless races, the war strategist who commanded military forces had betrayed them. The strings of fate rippled gently, and the surging waves tried to pull him back to his body. Yusulin's soul shone brightly, as if he were wearing a magnificent suit of crystal armor. He leapt towards the dazzling golden light, touching the strings of destiny. Inside the enormous throne room, a figure, gleaming like a god, stood amidst echoes of agonizing cries. He felt a familiar connection and was about to examine it when suddenly the scene distorted, and a surge of evil force emanated from the threads of fate, trying to send him back into his body. Yusulin, uniting the strength of the soothsayers, strives to reach the illusory threads of the future. Countless images come rushing in. The giant wore purple gold armor and had a magnificent silver weapon at his waist. The purple gemstone on the hilt was crudely made, yet strangely beautiful. Yusulin was deeply shaken and almost lost his ability to maintain his perfect mental state. Emperor's Children's Primarch Fulgrim acquired a blade that was parasitized by Sai Lanceresh's most powerful minions, the Keeper of Secrets. He stood beside Horus, a long, semi-living whip used to lure prey wrapped around his waist. Open black lens bracket. Fulgrim must be warned not to follow Horus, and they must discard the sword. Close black lens bracket. As Yusulin's mind raced, silk strings seemed to unleash a hungry claw. His soul suddenly spun around, avoiding Sai Lanceresh's vicious predation. Yusulin's idea of returning to his body leads him to stumble aimlessly onto the threads of fate. Dark King, Vengeful Spirit, a duel between father and son. Ulr Patson, a faint, almost imperceptible black shadow. John Granmatikas, Men of Iron. Yusulin's soul returned to his body. His body trembled slightly. Bang! The crystal statue shattered. Dull, lifeless debris poured down like quicksand, scattering across the ground. Yusulin's oval eyes were filled with sadness. A soothsayer burned his entire soul to protect him throughout his journey. After sitting in silence for several seconds, he calmed his turbulent emotions and pondered a plan to guide the Menkai race through destruction. In Yusulin's mind, a series of plans gradually took shape. First, he had to remind the proud Fulgrim. Just as he was about to let his consciousness spread, a dark shadow suddenly appeared in his mind. Yusulin stopped immediately. Each phantom has a hidden meaning. Black shadow. Countless pieces of information flashed through Yusulin's mind, attempting to establish a conceptual or logical connection with the black shadow, or perhaps a connection on a supernatural level. Suddenly, a brilliant idea flashed into his mind. Nimrod. He was the most powerful Primarch, and he led his offspring to defeat the Crave, Randan, and Midu people. His legion is called Order Shadow. His legion's warships and his armor were black. Nimrod, perhaps he can save his race from destruction. Yusulin's thoughts shifted, and his consciousness spread outwards, extending towards the shadow of sovereignty. The next instant, his smooth features contorted, and his angular face trembled uncontrollably. Greater than 924 Great Birthday Celebration. Actual troop strength of each legion. The maximum number of troops I can mobilize exceeds 600,000. Shadow of Sovereignty, Primarch Office. Arsena Dun, holding the data slate, speaks to the Black Emperor. My lord, in accordance with your command, I have gathered the forces of each chapter. As of now, the Legion has a total of 393,160 Order Shadows. Nimrod recalled the Legion's size in 900 M30, 279,630, representing a growth rate of approximately 40.6%. He recalled that the Ultramarines had a total strength of 166,000 at 900 M30, and 250,000 before the Great Birthday Celebration, an increase of about 50%. The Ultramarines did not experience any major wars in more than a century. Over the past century, I have fought Harud, Time Fire, Terra, the Grelibis orcs driven by Tzeentch, and Eldar Arc. Given the brutal wars involving Marg Silas, Arc-Edge Cluster, Jingyuan Federation, Crave, Gate 42, and Murder Planet, this growth rate is already quite impressive. If I hadn't had the 36,274 men of the Second Legion, the Legion wouldn't be what it is today. As Nimrod sighed inwardly, Primarch's attendant continued his report with a proud expression. Following your command from a century ago, I seized every opportunity to falsely report 25,600 casualties in the war against the Grelibis Orc invasion, when the actual casualties were 9,413. In order to conceal the existence of space domains such as Terra, Jingyuan Federation, and Arc-Edge Cluster, casualty figures were not reported to the War Council. Quote, in the eyes of Warmaster and other forces, Order Shadow's forces number 237,400. Well done, Nimrod said approvingly. Arsena had made the most of his ability to rationalize the inflated casualties in the combat briefing. The hidden force of 155,760 men already exceeds the total strength of the previous 12 legions of the Great Birthday Celebration. If the enemy underestimates his strength, his war plans will go wrong. Arsena, with her snow-white hair, chuckled softly, "I hope I won't have to scrutinize every single number anymore." He not only had to conceal the actual strength of his troops, but also had to make a series of related adjustments, such as scheduling and supply, so that other forces in the Empire would not be aware of the potential scale. Arsena continued his report in a relaxed tone. The largest force is the 10th chapter, with a total of 40,800 men. The 10th chapter absorbed the forces of the 2nd Legion and participated in almost every battle over nearly a century. Nimrod altered their minds and memories, forging them into Order shadows through war. Although some people still retain the habit of eating Hannibals, they have also integrated into the culture of the Rose Bishop, who feed on aliens. The number of Order shadows in Chapter 11 is the second highest among all chapters, at 37,400. The unit with the smallest force is Chapter 12, with a total of 25,900 men. The appropriate primary recruitment world has a significant impact on the scale of Chapter 1, Nimrod thought to himself. Open black lens bracket 11th chapter also participated in almost all the battles, but with Vostroya and Aventinum as the main recruitment sites, it has always been the largest of my genetic offspring. Tanith has a smaller population. Chapter 12 has been the smallest since Chapter 10 acquired Faceless Ones. After clarifying the Legion's strength, Nimrod combined his memory of each Legion's strength, the increase or decrease in his impact, and the War Council's report to analyze the relative strengths of both sides in the Great Birthday Celebration. Loyalists, Ultramarines, is the largest legion, with 250,000 members. Nimrod sensed that Robert Gilliman had been provoked by something, and even though he hadn't taken over the 2nd Legion and some members of the 11th Legion as he remembered, he still managed to grow the legion to a size of 250,000. Open black lens bracket Glenn's 1st and 2nd chapters of the Terra-born number 19,600, and they are the force I can command. Close black lens bracket. In his memory, the Dark Angels numbered slightly less than 200,000, and without being a main force in the Randan War, they could have surpassed the Ultramarines. However, Lionel Johnson seems to have been spurred on by Luther and launched a more aggressive expedition against the aliens throughout the galaxy, resulting in a total legion strength of approximately 210,000 to 230,000. Blood Angels, because Nimrod participated in Eldar Arc Marg Silas's defense of Siriaret, had 8,100 more troops than the 120,000 he remembered. Although Nimrod achieved Ferrus Manus's most glorious victory, Gardanar, he used Ultramarines as cannon fodder. Iron Hands already suffered few casualties, only slightly more than the 113,000 he remembered, by 2,000. The Imperial Fists, however, increased in number from 100,000 to 116,000 because Nimrod seized Colonid Abyss and did not fight the Midu people. Space Wolves also benefited from Nimrod's participation in Wheel of Fire, where it fought against the Arc-Edge Cluster and Jinyuan Federation on its own. In Nimrod's memory, the Wolf Pack numbered between 95,000 and 100,000 before the Great Birthday Celebration, and has now surged to 109,000. Open black lens bracket I was too lenient with Lehman Russ. The Wolf Pack benefited greatly, achieving the third highest reduction in casualties among the Loyalists. Close black lens bracket. Nimrod invited Jagatai to participate in the Third Randan War, which led to increased casualties for the White Scars, but the Order Shadow also joined the war against Nephilim and replaced them in liberating Druin. The White Scars, forces numbered slightly more than the 95,000 he remembered, at 96,000. Open black lens bracket I defeated Hasanayan Khan, Tagan Khan, and Agu Khan. Although this caused Jagatai to lose 13,000 sons, it also prevented him from being overthrown by Horus and causing internal strife within the legions. Close black lens bracket. The strength of the Salamanders and the Raven Guard remained unaffected, still at 89,000 and 80,000 respectively. Open black lens bracket in Raven Guard, I can only control Alistair's company of 1,000 men right now. Close black lens bracket. The Rebels. Although the Word Bearers are believed to number only 150,000, their actual size is closer to 250,000. Moreover, because Nimrod has taken over the Arc-Edge Cluster, the Word Bearers did not participate in the battle, and their forces may have been even greater. Open black lens bracket I'm awesome, Zadkiel. He can now control 3 chapters with 3,000 people, more than the original 1,000 people in the Feather of the Pen chapter. Close black lens bracket. Because the Emperor entrusted Incarnate to them, the Iron Warriors did not lose 29,000 men, did not suffer the 11 killings, and did not engage in war with Harud. Therefore, although they fought more wars against space dwarves in the galactic core, their military strength also increased significantly. The number of people reached 194,000, more than the 150,000 to 180,000 I remembered. Nimrod recalled Lord Chesney of 9th chapter and Incarnate, whom he had personally promoted. Fabricator General Nedu Sage reported that Perturbo's brutal suppression of the Olympian rebellion revealed that the Iron Lord had been overwhelmed by the Emperor's indifference. He did not respond to the communication request, and it is highly likely that he followed Horus in his defection. As expected, subduing Primarch won't be easy, but there's no rush. Once he realizes that Horus also uses him as a tool, he'll naturally be disappointed. Then I can forgive his betrayal, and he'll be even more grateful to me. It is hoped that the new Beyander abilities, following the promotion to Role of the Fallen, will ensure Perturbo's loyalty. Nimrod gathered his thoughts and continued his analysis. Warmasters, sons of Horus, because I'm good at Terra, and Aureus, participated in the liberation of Druin, in the war in Murder Planet. The army was more than 130,000 to 170,000 as I remembered, about 189,000. However, without the 2 STCs he gained in Aureus, his alliance with the faction led by Kelber Hal will not be as stable. After all, oil men are very pragmatic. What could Horus possibly do? Vaults of Moravitz, he had already given them. Nimrod guessed in his heart, then smiled and thought to himself. Just as I remember, the World Eaters had a force of 150,000. I'm 1/3 better. The Night Lords' forces were the same as he remembered, numbering 120,000. Open black lens bracket Zo Sahar's company has 1,000 men. Sigh. I'm not that great, after all, I barely interacted with Conrad Kurz, close black lens bracket. The second company of Emperor's Children did not participate in the Battle of Gardenar under Phoenix's command, and the Battle of Murder Planet ended prematurely, with 5,000 more men than the 110,000 he remembered. Open black lens bracket Akurduana is not dead, and is one of the 11 commanders. Together with Lucius, they should be able to influence nearly 10,000 people, close black lens bracket. Because of his participation in the liberation of Druin, the Death Guard had a force of nearly 100,000, more than the 95,000 he remembered. Alpha was able to recruit a large number of soldiers ahead of time because he found Omega in advance, which indirectly led to the Legion appearing in the Empire's sights earlier. The size of the Legion was definitely larger than he remembered, but Nimrod could not determine its size. In Nimrod's memory, the Alpha forces ranged from 90,000 to 180,000. Although the priests led by Dreamwalker, Pat have begun to modify the dreams of the Alphas who have infiltrated Order Shadow, making them believe that they are Order Shadows who have infiltrated the Alphas, even they do not know the actual size of their legion. Although the Thousand Sons participated in the war between the Galactic Core and the Space Dwarves and the Second Randan War, because of his appearance, they did not participate in the War of the Archedge Cluster. Their total number still reached 90,000, more than the 80,000 to 85,000 he remembered. I can influence 1/3 of the Dark Angels and 1/9 of the Thousand Sons, and ideally, the total number of legions I can influence is approximately 176,000. In addition to the 13,000 inches Space Sharks, and 11,000 inches Ashhen Claws, exiled by Korax, I could potentially mobilize up to 603,000 people. 600,000. Nimrod was shocked when they obtained this number. The 600,000 was nearly 100,000 more than the combined total of the two largest legions of the Loyalists and the Rebels. This doesn't even take into account the fact that he commanded two legions with over 22,000 men. Open black lens bracket thinking about it this way, I actually do have the ability to fight on several fronts simultaneously, close black lens bracket. He suppressed his excitement and analyzed the situation further. Open black lens bracket it's not that easy to mobilize them all, close black lens bracket. Those directly under the command of Akurduana and others are fine, but the Dark Angels are a problem. Ryan has dispatched his legions throughout the galaxy, while most of my people are in Caliban and cannot directly influence the Dark Angels trained by the Corrosion Gene Seed. I can only try to impose my will on them when the time comes. While Nimrod was pondering, Arsena walked over to the cogitator and picked up the control stick. My lord, I have also compiled a list of the territories controlled by the Legion. Arsena, I'll continue listening to your report later. The Mentor of Disorder's eyes were deep. I have an uninvited guest. 925 Nimrod. Uslan, do not meet the Fulgrim in person. Ulfway Arc World. Soothsayer Eldred Ulthran's influence extends to the consciousness of Shadow of Sovereignty, touching upon Gothic war robots. A warship devoid of any aesthetic appeal. He swept swiftly across the hull of the ship with his assessment, projecting it onto the highest point of the warship. Yuslin's consciousness penetrated into the steel shell, enduring the discomfort caused by the asymmetrical structure violating the principles of balance. He felt the abhorrent black hole standing in the great door of the palace. The soulless. Yuslin's long black hair swayed from his delicate and elegant ears. As his consciousness swirled away from the black hole, his body leapt up from the ground. He placed his right hand on a shimmering tree, and the power of the departed soothsayers flowed into his body. Yuslin's consciousness suddenly emitted a faint light, spinning like an arrow to avoid the soulless one and fly into the palace. Boom! Suddenly, countless intricate geometric symbols appeared, slanted triangles, upright squares, swirling rings. Yuslin's eyes narrowed, and a surge of power flowed into his body, causing his consciousness to gleam with crystal-like light, launching hundreds of attacks around the rune array in an instant. Bang bang bang! Every shining arrow of consciousness was deflected, the geometric rune array leaving no gaps. Yuslin's eyes shone brightly as he sent out a spinning arrow of consciousness. Suddenly, the invisible barrier suddenly disappeared, causing his thoughts to pause. Yuslin could still feel the power of the soulless black hole tearing at Soothsayer like the earth collapsing, and the crystal tree gradually dimmed. He seized the moment, projecting a thought impulse. Primarch Nimrod of Order Shadow, I salute Eldred Ulthrin of the Ark of Ulthway. Although this is our first communication in this way, I warned you of the dangers lurking in the space you call Sark Trata Abyss a century ago. Now, Yuslin suddenly felt the tendrils seize his consciousness, and a cold, greedy sensation spread rapidly, seeping into his body. Crave? No, it's the Crave originator. How is that possible? Didn't Nimrod already destroy this evil predator race? After the fall of the Eldar Empire, Yuslin carried the burden in the darkness, leading his ark and his people forward. For the first time in centuries, he heard good news: Nimrod had destroyed Crave. Since the Eldar were born, they have been the target of Lady Hera's prey. The originator led his race, parasitizing one race after another, devouring hundreds and thousands of Eldar worlds. News of the destruction of the Crave, one of the oldest races in the galaxy, has spread throughout all the Eldar Ark worlds and has also been disseminated in Gamma through the captured slaves. The absence of the threat posed by Lady Hera is a blessing for all races in the galaxy. Now, Crave has reappeared. Moreover, it seems to be driven by Nimrod. Open black lens bracket impossible, close black lens bracket. Yuslin had just conceived the idea when he immediately dismissed it. Crave originator cannot be enslaved or driven by any existence. Is it a coincidence? The surviving originators took their revenge on Nimrod at this very moment. This is precisely my opportunity to show goodwill. As Yuslin pondered, a thought pulse was projected. Nimrod, I stand with you against this. Yuslin's mind went blank as Crave originator's tentacles tightly bound him. Inside the crystal dome, a layer of frost rose on the surface of the statue he was holding, making a clicking sound. Yuslin held fast to his composure, resisting the predator's infiltration, and had no energy left to send thought impulses. As he struggled desperately, a dark shadow quietly appeared. Yuslin seized the opportunity and was about to join forces with Nimrod to attack Crave originator's mind when he suddenly sensed a black shadow passing through the tendril gaps without hindrance and striking his arrow of consciousness. Bang! The crystal statue shattered with a bang, scattering fragments everywhere. My heart is broken. The arrow of consciousness, which was rapidly dimming, shattered and became entangled in a black shadow. Blood welled in Yuslin's narrow, round eyes as he staggered backward. A deep voice suddenly rang out, "Thank you for the message. I'll also give you a heads up, don't meet Fulgrim in person." Yuslin leaned against his staff, and after a long while, he managed to gather his scattered consciousness and regain his thoughts. Nimrod broke through my mental defenses, his mental power was incredibly strong. The thought impulse he sent indicated that he knew the message I wanted to convey, his method, domineering. He also knew I was going to see Fulgrim. Why did he remind me? Yuslin wondered, as he felt the icy chill in his body gradually recede. Crave originator should hate Nimrod more. Why is he clinging to me like this? Could it be that he was manipulated by the recording? How could that be? At the same moment that Yuslin was troubled by a series of questions, Nimrod of Shadow of Sovereignty spoke to Arsene Adun. He has been expelled. Primarch's attendant sensed the Black Emperor's inviolable will. Praise be to my lord, for you shall not be looked upon. Nimrod nodded. Sensing the invading consciousness, he immediately sent a message to Crave originator Kunsa, with whom he had established a mental connection, and together they launched a mental attack on it. Although the opponent's mental power was extremely strong and was enhanced by some kind of force, Nimrod and Kunsa, working together, still managed to break through his mental defenses. Nimrod not only learned the other party's identity, but also Eldred Ulthrin, the most powerful soothsayer of Eldar, and the message he was about to convey. He also noted that Yuslin wanted to meet Fulgrim in Taurus. Nimrod's memories were then awakened, and Yuslin reminded Fulgrim during the meeting that Horus had betrayed the Emperor. Driven by the Blade of Lur, Fulgrim launched an attack. Wraith Knight Heron Goldholm blocked the fatal blow aimed at Yuslin, but at the cost of his soul being devoured by the greater demon of Slanesh. Yuslin realized that the Fulgrim had fallen, and he awakened a fragment of the Eldar god of combat, the avatar of Cairn. However, relying on the power of the Keeper of Secrets, the Fulgrim killed Cain's avatar and then ordered the use of viral bombs to destroy the Eldar's maiden world. In the current Empire, after the Emperor returned to Terra, among all the Empire's military forces, only Warmaster has the authority to authorize the use of viral bombs. However, the Fulgrim of today are not bound by the laws of the Empire. The whispers of the Keeper of Secrets allow him to revel in the pleasure of destroying the Eldar maiden world. Nimrod alerted the Xenomorph soothsayer not because of his own reminder, but because he had also learned the coordinates of the Eldar maiden world within the Perduz anomaly from Yuslin's consciousness. Perduz anomaly is the territory of Yuslin's arc, which is why he decided to meet Fulgrim in one of its worlds, Tower Suth. Nimrod reminded Yuslin because he didn't want the precious maiden world to be destroyed by the Fulgrim. Although he now possesses the largest territory in Primarch, in terms of the galaxy, the 5-planet Tricon remains the most brilliant jewel at the galactic level. Oil Men originally planned to develop the mineral-rich Tricon Prime into the Forge world, while Tricon 2, I, and V would form 3 night worlds. After Nimrod surpassed Tricon ahead of schedule, the entire galaxy not only possessed production capacity comparable to Forge world, but also produced rare resources such as Mandrake. Unlike the other Forge worlds and industrial worlds of the Empire, which were swallowed up by industrial pollution, all 5 planets met the standards of a paradise world. With the development of each chapter, the 12 maiden worlds of Serpent's Cradle have also grown rapidly by leveraging their respective resource advantages, and their production capacity has steadily increased. Nimrod learned from Yuslin's consciousness that there were 15 such precious worlds in the entire Perduz anomaly, more than he remembered. All he knew was that there were 3 maiden worlds in the Perduz anomaly, and that the Fulgrim had intended to develop this space for the Empire. But after hearing Yuslin's warning, he did not explore further and instead went to see Horus. Under the influence of the Blade of Lur and the Warmaster's flattering words, he sided with Horus. Given that the great birthday celebration was approaching, Nimrod had no intention of venturing into the unusual Perduz region of the entire universe. The development is too difficult, the forces are scattered, and invading Ulthway's space region may attract both Eldar and Fulgrim enemies at the same time. But now, they feed us right up to our mouths. I'd be letting you down if I weren't awesome. Nimrod's eyes sparkled. 15 maiden worlds. The value of 15 versus 3 is worlds apart. Open black lens bracket. I can mobilize up to 600,000 troops. I have the resources and strength to commit forces to produce. Close black lens bracket. While Nimrod was pondering, he opened a drawer and took out a data crystal. He inputted his memories and the information he obtained from Yuslin's mind into the data crystal. The data crystal grew brighter and brighter, eventually bursting forth with dazzling light. A glint flashed in Primarch's eyes, and with telekinesis, he carried the data crystal to Primarch's attendant, whose hair was as white as snow. Instruct Santiago to immediately analyze the coordinates and plan a route to Perduz anomaly. I will board the Miraculous and go there together. Nimrod decided that relying on the Miraculous's cloaking ability was the best way to avoid conflict with the Fulgrim. Even from tens of thousands of light years away, he could use the Tuchucha engine of the 3rd layer of Nation of Disorder to quickly bring the fleet around the shadow of Sovereign to Tarkus. The anomalies in the Perduz region cannot stop the Tuchucha engine, unless it is a turbulence of the level of Destruction Storm, unleashed by Khorne, in which case it cannot break through. Yuslin, I hope you listen to my advice, it will save me a lot of trouble. Greater than 926 Horus, why is Nimrod able to find so many rare standard template constructs? Vengeful Spirit, Warmaster's inner chamber. Regulus, the representative of the Adeptus Mechanicus faction, looked at Horus Lupercal, who radiated boundless energy. His prosthetic eye couldn't identify what it was, but it was obvious. New forces emerged from the shadows, and the course of the Great Crusade began to veer off course. As Regulus gazed at Warmaster, Primarch's attendant Malahurst began to speak. I have heard that more than 2 centuries ago, Forticothea brought the Emperor to the Fabricator General's foundry. He was forced to kneel down. A click sound came from beneath Regulus's robes. Fabricator General wasn't the leader of Mars back then, he's now the other head of the double-headed eagle. Malahurst remained calm, he had been prepared in advance, following his father's orders. He promised you that you would be given equal status during the Great Conquest, but have you achieved that now? What did you get in return for contributing weapons of war to the Empire? Is this true equality? What will you give us next? Regulus asked Horus. Horus remained silent, and Primarch's attendant continued to speak on his behalf. Warmaster promises to forge a true, equal covenant with Mars, not a covenant that exploits Mars. I want to hear the actual details, Regulus pressed. Warmaster will withdraw all non-Adeptus Mechanicus forces from all Forge worlds. The metallic numbers branded on the icon of Adeptus Mechanicus clicked, including garrisons in worlds such as Incarnate of Nimrod, Lucius, Mezzoa, and High Valaria. Of course, Warmaster will help Mars to subdue these separatist-ridden worlds. Regulus, satisfied with the reply, continued, I will take your proposal back to Fabricator General. I want to know what price Mars will have to pay. We have already followed Warmaster's orders and adjusted the supplies to the expeditionary fleets. Our weapons and supplies are prioritized for the expeditionary fleet favored by Warmaster, while delivery to legions he dislikes is delayed. Now, what else do you need? Ambassador, your question is quite astute, Maroglugos praised. Before Warmaster's army arrives at the Sol system, Fabricator General must ensure that Mars remains firmly in his hands. Oh, he must destroy or force any forces loyal to Terra to keep Warmaster's cause undisturbed. Regulus looked at Horus. Although he had some suspicions before coming, his logic engine still froze for a second when he heard Malahurst express Malahurst's blunt ambition to replace the Emperor of Mankind. Excuse my bluntness, but the cost is enormous. Mars still has many forging cities loyal to Tyrant, and many sages believe him to be the embodiment of Omnitia. Your request will ignite a civil war that divides Mars. He stared at Horus. What reason do you have to believe that you won't be another tyrant? Good question. Horus spoke for the first time since the meeting began. He knew what would attract Adeptus Mechanicus. Knowledge. Standard template construct is a good bargaining chip, but he doesn't have it. Horus knew that his request to his new ally, Chaos Gods, would surely be granted. But what price will be paid for this? Horus's mind flashed through the standard template constructs retrieved by Nimrod. Romulus-class Star Fort, Gabriel pattern Predator, Bellic battle tank. Why can Nimrod find so many rare standard template constructs? Although he doesn't have a standard template construct, he has other bait. I will authorize Mars to lift the ban on research into all forbidden technologies. I will give you the instructions to open the Vaults of Moravits. Vaults of Moravits. Regulus's voice trembled. Moravik was one of the most talented of the ancient monks of Terra. He firmly believed that technology would eventually break through the limitations of human wisdom, triggering a technological singularity, the fusion of man and machine that transcends both. He predicted that once humans and machines are perfectly integrated, Omnitia will emerge from it. He was not merely a theoretical theologian, but also hoped to personally perform miracles to bring Omnitia to life. His views attracted many Terra technical experts to his side, forming the Singularity Brotherhood. His research findings aroused suspicion among many tyrants. The barbarian warlord Khazar of the Pan-Pacific Radiation Wasteland stormed Moravik's fortress, branding him as a heretic, but did not kill him. After surviving the attack, Moravik fled to Mars, where he built his cellar deep in the Olympus Mountains and sealed all his belongings inside. The vaults of Moravits have been sealed away for over 1,000 years. After Tyrant set foot on Mars, he went to investigate the sealed land. He did not enter, and strictly forbade anyone to open it before leaving Mars. You heard me right, Vaults of Moravits, Horus said. 5 seconds later, Regulus finally spoke again. I have to admit, you offered a tempting price. I will relay your sincerity to the Fabricator General, who will make the decision. I believe Kelber Hal will make a wise choice. Horus's eyes were deep. One of the ways Warp's allies helped him was by showing him how to unlock the Vaults of Moravits. He already knew what was inside. Moravik, like himself, wisely made a deal with the existence of Warp, whose power was contained in his cellar. Kelber Hal also knew what was inside. Although his father had erased the memories of the Vaults of Moravits in the Mars monks' memory cache, he had not deleted the memories of the treasure in their minds. How foolish he was. He hid an apple nearby, hoping that Kelber Hal and the others would never find it. I will help them get the apples. Horus was convinced that once Kelber Hal opened the Vaults of Moravits, he and his followers would gain powers beyond reality. The Dark Mechanicum will be born. Horus raised his hand and gently stroked Regulus's head, like a giant caressing a child. Another gift from his ally, the warp power concealed by his hypocritical father, was projected from his palm. Regulus trembled, and sparks crackled beneath his robes. A prayer was chanted in Regulus's mind. He had never heard a binary hymn before. A prayer that transcends the limitations of physical reality. 12 seconds later, Horus raised his palm. I already know how to open the vaults of Moravitz. Regulus looked at the giant before him and felt that he was even more imposing than before he stepped into the private chamber. Now he knew what the power emanating from Warmaster was. It was the power of warp that transcends the laws of physics. Horus watched Regulus depart, the Mars ambassador who had been enlightened by his help. He has mastered the new Adeptus Mechanicus prayer and new power, and he has fully embraced the warp allies. He was the first pioneer of the Dark Mechanicum in Mars. He turned to the Twisted beside him and asked, do you think he'll succeed? Kelber Hal could not possibly resist the allure of the vaults of Moravitz, only you can grant him the opportunity to glimpse their forbidden knowledge. But I believe that the conditions we proposed are almost equivalent to the bait we offered, which means that our alliance is fragile. If the war goes against them, they may develop ulterior motives. The communicator buzzed, and after listening to the report, Primarch's attendant reported to Warmaster, Perturbo's Stormbird will land on the flight deck in an hour. I want to personally welcome my brother, Horus said with a smile. 927 If only Nimrod had ambitions like Horus. As Perturbo stepped off the flight deck, he immediately saw Warmaster standing on the tarmac waiting for him. His gloomy, icy blue eyes brightened slightly as he strode towards Horus. Perturbo was somewhat stiff as Horus held him. As their armor clashed, he felt the immense power hidden within his strong body, far greater than he had ever imagined. He parted from Horus and said, Warmaster. Horus embraced him warmly, Perturbo, my brother. I've always longed to meet you, I mean to meet you face to face, and now we finally have the chance. Perturbo, led by the enthusiastic Horus, arrived at his private chamber. The main gate is closed, leaving only the two brothers. Horus looked at Perturbo across from him and said, my brother, you seem to be troubled by something. After a few seconds of silence, Perturbo finally spoke, saying, I have made an irreparable mistake. What error? Horus leaned forward, listening intently to the explanation. Perturbo looked into Horus's focused and trusting eyes, hesitated for more than 10 seconds, and then spoke. Olympia has rebelled. That's how it was. My orders nearly destroyed the entire Olympia, 4.75 million people died because of my orders. Perturbo calmly recounted the pressure he felt, observing Horus's reaction. He chose to see Horus because he had learned of Warmaster's attitude towards Angron, and he hoped to receive the same treatment from Warmaster. Your actions are perfectly correct. Traitors must be dealt with swiftly and decisively. It's a pity you couldn't attend the celebration of the victory at Ullanor, but that day wasn't all good memories, Horus said with a self-deprecating laugh. You should have heard that Angron went on a rampage like a caged animal after the celebration. I used all my diplomatic skills to appease his anger and get him to temporarily accept my appointment. But I know that if I want to become a true Warmaster, barely enough is not enough. Horus stood up. If I want to become a Warmaster, I must gain everyone's trust and obedience. I gave Angron what he wanted from Libertas, and all I needed was his loyalty. The Emperor will bind him with chains, but I will allow his excessive killing. Your loyalty was bought with blood, Perturbo said bluntly. That's right, I am the Warmaster, and I need you, Horus said. Angron is the most brutal and bloodthirsty of the Primarch, but he still has a place in my plans. I need his loyalty, specifically his loyalty to me. He walked up to Perturbo and patted him on the shoulder. Might makes right, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with what you are doing. Perturbo felt a warm current seep into his body from his shoulder armor, and he forced himself not to let Horus completely control his will. You mentioned a plan, what kind of plan is it? Horus recalled Perturbo's skepticism about the Emperor's vision. The Emperor abandoned us in the galaxy, returned to Terra, and wanted to become a god on his own. Perturbo's eyes widened. He said he wasn't a god. His lies. Horus's expression was pained, yet unusually resolute. We all once believed in the perfect vision painted by the Emperor, but it was all a lie. I think what you just said is absolutely correct. The Empire was a farce orchestrated by my father. Horus exclaimed, yes, he's an actor in this farce, he fooled us with his performance. We are all his tools, and once we are dull and clumsy, he will discard us. Please think carefully, has he ever praised your great achievements? Perturbo thought of how he had always taken on tasks that other Primarchs were unwilling to do without complaint, yet had not received commensurate recognition, and the words of rebuttal stuck in his throat. Think again, why would he abandon us, leave the Great Crusade, and return to Terra? He is working towards his plan to ascend to godhood, and all of humanity will suffer because of him. We must stop him. We are all suffering because of the truth, but we must face reality. Do you have any evidence? Of course. Horus walked to the cabinet and opened the drawer. Do you think I would accuse him without any evidence? Take a look at it, the Book of the Word. He handed a stack of papers to Perturabo, saying, I recently discovered that the ammunition depot deep on the lower deck of my flagship is the site of a gathering of the Book of Words. Kari Sindman, the chief preacher of the expeditionary fleet, was even one of them. He preached the Emperor on my warship. They worship emperors like gods, while we bring the light of science and reason to mortals, they worship a false god. Perturabo quickly scanned the contents of the paper in his hand, his respect and love for his father torn apart. Horus put his arms around Perturabo's shoulders and said fervently, I need your support, my brother. He said earnestly, I can't do this without you. I need your hammer to shatter the illusory drama my father constructed and let the light of truth shine upon the human race once more. I beg you, help me to win the upcoming war. Perturabo stared into Warmaster's burning eyes. You want to become the new emperor of mankind. That's right. Horus made no attempt to hide it. If only Nimrod had Horus's ambition, he's too loyal to his father. His proposed librarian program was scrapped, and he was judged in Nikaya. Perturabo gathered his thoughts and suppressed the memory of Nikaya deep within his mind. I'll join your plan. Great. Horus raised his fist. We will definitely win, and you will win glory. This time, no one will overlook your achievements, and you will receive praise and applause commensurate with your accomplishments. Dorn and his imperial fists are mine, Perturabo declared. Horus recalled the story Fulgrim had told him, in which he had asked Dorne, can you build a fortress that Perturabo cannot breach? Dorn replied directly to Perturabo's face, yes. Perturabo slammed his fist on the table and left. Of course it's yours. You will prove that you are far superior to Terra's guards. Your hammer can smash every fortress he has built. Perturabo nodded in satisfaction. Horus escorted Perturabo all the way to the flight deck, waving continuously to the Stormbird taking off. Only after Stormbird disappeared from sight did he turn around and stride confidently toward his private room. It's time to move on to the next step of the plan. 928 Akerduana, only you can persuade Father. Ulfway Ark World, Soothsayer Eldred Ulthrin sat cross-legged inside the crystal dome, Nimrod's reminder flashing through his mind. As the Eldar's greatest soothsayer, he wouldn't normally take the prophetic advice of a short-lived race's general to heart, but Nimrod's actions forced him to take his warning seriously. Sark Trata Abyss, the destructive fire that consumes everything. He led the Legion to destroy Harud's largest settlement, yet the Legion suffered minimal losses. He encountered the ancient devil Prince Bellicor, but instead of perishing, he inflicted a considerable loss on the Lord of Shadows. He crushed the ancient Lady Hera, the galactic predators suffered a devastating blow, and his Legion remains powerful. He might even command a powerful Crave originator. Yuslan preferred to believe it was a coincidence caused by various factors he couldn't understand. He couldn't fathom what means Nimrod could possibly have to control the source. Yuslan's mind was racing with thoughts, but he ultimately decided to heed the advice of the mysterious and powerful Nimrod and not meet Fulgrim in person. He was about to let his consciousness spread when he suddenly stopped. If Nimrod's warning signifies the fall of the thread of fate, Yuslan got up, went to a shimmering crystal tree, and sat down cross-legged again. He spread his spirituality and immediately locked onto the purple gold warship in the territory of Yuslan's Ark, Perduz. The pride of the Emperor is more artistic than any other Imperial warship, but it can never match the Eldar warships. Yuslan did not linger on the ship for long before infiltrating its interior. He encountered no obstacles from the Soulless, nor was he hindered by any mysterious runic array. His consciousness arrived before Fulgrim. Fulgrim's purple gold armor gleamed, its gold trim shining like the sun. The armor was engraved with exquisite spiral patterns, and a bright green cloak was draped over the shoulders. Yuslan focused his consciousness, taking on his own form, and spoke in standard Imperial High Gothic, Fulgrim. Fulgrim stared at the psionic projection before him, whose smooth features were long and angular, and whose jet black hair cascaded over his fine, elegant ears and was tied into a long bun at his neck. A beige cloak covered the flowing black coat, and a gold belt studded with jewels was tied around the waist. Eldar. He suppressed the urge to draw his blade of lure. Even facing the alien, he had to maintain perfect composure. You know me, but I don't know who you are. I am Eldred Ulthrin, soothsayer from the Ulfway Ark World. Very well, Ulfway, Eldred Ulthrin of the Ark World. You may consider me the representative of the Emperor of Mankind and deal with me. Fulgrim said proudly, his silver hair flowing. Now, I want to know, is it your Ark that has been tracking us ever since my fleet arrived here? That's right, the world you've passed through is within our territory, Yuslan readily admitted. When we first realized you were crossing our territory, we considered attacking, but when we saw you simply moving forward without attempting to occupy a world that did not belong to you, we arrived. These maiden worlds have been waiting for my people to arrive, and to take them from us is an error. Fulgrim's eyes narrowed. Are you threatening me? This is just a small warning, but we do not wish to be your enemy. You have shown restraint that I do not expect from your race, Yuslan said. You are led by the warriors, known as the Warmasters, and your goal is to conquer the entire galaxy for your race. I'm not a historian, but I know your race once claimed to rule the entire galaxy. Fulgrim asked with a smile. We did indeed rule the galaxy, but we lost our kingdom because of our pride and complacency, Yuslan replied. Well, that's fair, Fulgrim laughed. One race will eventually perish, and another race will take its place. The Emperor of Mankind will lead us to rule Cosmos, just as your race once did. Fate. Yuslan chuckled softly. This is another purpose of my trip. I have witnessed the cursed fate of your race. Oh. Fulgrim crossed his arms. Tell me about it. The forces of chaos whisper truths wrapped in lies in the ear of your warmaster, Horus Heresy, fueling his ambition with distorted views of the future. He will lead his army against your emperor, and he will plunge the galaxy Milky Way into thousands of years of war and suffering. Shut up. Fulgrim roared. The emperor's most trusted sons could not possibly betray their father. How could the emperor have granted Horus the title of warmaster if he was not certain of Horus's loyalty? Lies, lies, another whisper echoed in his mind. This alien bastard is what caused you brothers to turn against each other. Fulgrim drew the blade of lure, the purple crystal on its hilt shimmering with an alluring luster. He's corrupting you with words, kill him. Yuslan quickly shouted, Fulgrim, I don't want to anger you. It's not too late. You must warn your emperor, or it will save countless lives. A silver arc suddenly flashed, heading straight for Yuslan. Supernatural energy rippled out purple afterimages, slashing towards Yuslan's psionic projection. Suddenly, a beam of light shot up from the crystal tree, enveloping Yuslan's psionic projection. Boom! A supernatural collision erupted in the cabin, sending up a ghostly light, and the luxurious crystal chandelier shattered with a bang. You've been corrupted. Yuslan was blasted away, but he withdrew his consciousness and returned to his original form. Open black lens bracket. So this is why Nimrod warned me not to meet him. Close black lens bracket. The crystal tree shattered with a bang, and Yuslan silently watched the scattered crystal sand. If I hadn't heeded Nimrod's advice and met Fulgrim in person, I would have had a hard time getting away. How could I not have foreseen this? Fulgrim has not only acquired a blade from the parasites of his great enemy's minions, he has already embarked on the path of darkness. Yuslan could sense that Fulgrim was still fighting, but the outcome was already sealed. Sai Lansrush's vicious claws had already seized him. Pride of the Emperor, Fulgrim gazed unwillingly at the fleeing Eldar, his chest heaving slightly. A hunger for killing surged within him. You know how to do it, a tempting whisper sounded. Destroy their world. They won't stand by and watch their territory be destroyed, they'll show up to stop it, and that's how you catch these alien warlocks. Yes, destroy their world, Fulgrim whispered. 3 hours later, the commander, the lord of Emperor's children, Akerduana struts down the wide avenue of God Almighty. Captain of the Second Company Solomon Demeter followed closely behind him. In fact, although Akerduana was one of the 11 commanders of the Legion, he was never in charge of commanding battles. When Eidolon and Vespasian were the first to win the title of commander, he was only the company commander of the Second Company, but the Emperor's children all knew that their father always had an infinite love for Akerduana. He declared publicly, a warrior like Akerduana, who has faced countless challenges in the Blade of Paratine, cannot be burdened by the weight of his position, that would tarnish his perfection. In fact, the first swordsman of Paratine never commanded battles, his command abilities were only half that of Solomon. Even when he was captain of the Second Company, Solomon was the commander who planned and directed the battles, but no one in the entire legion thought Akerduana was unworthy of his high position. The peerless swordsman is the perfect embodiment of Emperor's children. On the pale marble walls and towering agate columns on both sides of the road, lines of golden text are engraved with achievements. Akerduana has a record of 3 wins. The densely packed golden text on it records his numerous feats of single-handedly charging into enemy lines and beheading the enemy's most powerful warrior and commander. His deeds in protecting the Emperor and earning the Legion the name, Emperor's Children, and the Emperor's personal emblem, Palatine Aquila, are beyond the reach of even the most erected statues of Legion heroes. Every new recruit in the Legion hears about Akerduana's glorious deeds during their training. The glory gained over 2 centuries shone brightly, and Fulgrim could no longer suppress the discussions of the Emperor's children. Unable to protect his beloved son from the complexities of life any longer, he once again forced Akerduana to be promoted to commander. Akerduana. Akerduana looked around, then smiled and stepped forward to greet them. Vespasian. Vespasian's smooth armor reflected a dazzling light as he walked briskly. Fabius, along with his apothecary, injected more and more drugs into warriors' body, and some people underwent modifications. The Emperor's children are becoming increasingly reliant on new combat enhancement potions, which they use regularly. They are becoming decadent in pride. I've also noticed this problem. Father and Eidolon are supporting Fabius's new research. Akerduana recalled the scene at the Temple of Rahl. The silver blade that Fulgrim drew appeared ornate, but the weapon master instinctively felt that it contained supernatural, evil power. Akerduana, only you can persuade Father. Please, stop the Legion's perfect quality from being lost. Greater than 929. Your swordsmanship is more perfect than Nimrod's, you possess the most perfect sword. I will speak with my father, Akerduana said to Vespasian, who was also a lord and commander. Vespasian breathed a sigh of relief and walked with Akerduana through the triumph door. At intervals on both sides, there is an emperor's child holding a golden spear, standing like a statue, motionless. Akerduana continued onward and arrived at the enormous phoenix door. When the guards saw the two commanders approaching side by side, they bowed deeply and thrust their spears into the ground, causing the massive bronze leaves to part smoothly. Akerduana and Vespasian nodded to them, then crossed the city door and entered the council hall of Primarch, Heliopolis. Towering pale stone walls support a huge domed room, with intricate mosaic patterns covering the walls, and long purple and gold ribbons hanging between green marble columns. Heliopolis was surrounded by rows of marble benches arranged in tiers towards the walls, enough to accommodate 2,000 people. However, apart from the Legion's 52nd Fleet, only a handful of commanders from the 28th Expeditionary Fleet who had requested their presence attended this War Council meeting. Almost all the remembrancers that the Sigillite brought into the Expeditionary Fleet were present, and some even brought their easels. A crowd gathered around an exceptionally beautiful woman, the musician Becca Kinska. Captain of the 2nd Company Solomon Demeter gazed at the woman with flowing sapphire blue hair. The Emperor's design made it unclear to Astartes like him about their feelings for the opposite sex. But Ginska's extraordinary charm awakened his senses. Solomon frowned, quickened his pace, and closed the distance between himself and his lord, the commander, speaking in a low voice. Mrs. Ginska is very strange. Solomon felt a predatory gaze sweep over him, and to his astonishment, the mortal woman broke free from her social engagement and turned to look at him. She smiled gently, and the scent of apples wafted straight to Astartes' nostrils. Solomon shut off his breathing and heard Akerduana say, "I understand." Bright starlight shone down from the center of the dome, striking the black terrazzo floor of Heliopolis and emitting a dazzling light. In the center of the pillar of starlight was a polished black marble chair. Akerduana walked to the left of the empty chair and sat down. Vespasian sat down beside him, and Solomon sat down behind him. Phoenix door opens again, and the son of the Phoenix procession enters Heliopolis. Amidst thunderous applause, Akerduana noticed the silver-hilted sword hanging at Fulgrim's waist. He hadn't worn the flaming sword, the blade Phoenix had forged for him, for months. It was once a symbol of friendship and was called the perfect sword by her father. But it has now fallen out of favor. Fulgrim wore a perfect smile and nodded to the lords and commanders, lingering especially long on Akerduana's face for a moment. Eidolon watched this scene with a gloomy expression, followed by Saul Tarvitz, the company commander of the 10th Company, and Lucius, the company commander of the 13th Company. After Fulgrim took his seat, he looked around at everyone and began to speak. "Commanders, ladies and gentlemen, I have gathered you here to announce the punishment for the aliens. 4 hours ago, Warlock, an Eldar who called himself Eldred Ulthrin, delivered a ridiculous message to me, claiming that the Great Warmaster had betrayed the Empire. His eyebrows rose, and a whisper echoed in his mind, 'Destroy their world, kill the aliens.' To punish them for their slander against my brother, I order the 28th and 52nd Fleets to conduct orbital bombardment of 28-4. Use a virus bomb." Vespasian frowned and said, "Father, 28-4 the land is rich, the ocean is blue, and atmospheric readings show that there is a breathable atmosphere, unaffected by pollution. It is a planet with great potential that is in dire need of development. We should not prevent the people of the Empire from setting foot on its land in order to punish the xenomorphs. Error. Moreover, only Warmaster possesses the virus bomb. He's questioning you, he's declaring you don't have the authority of a Warmaster, kill him." A terrifying voice echoed in Fulgrim's ears. "No, he is my son," Fulgrim cried out in his heart. "My son, listen to me." Fulgrim stood up. "Everyone. Father." Akerduana stood up, recalling the Black Emperor's oracle, and spoke. Fulgrim stared at Akerduana. "My son, do you have something to say? We all believe that Warmaster would never betray the Emperor, and we understand your determination as his close friend to punish the xenomorphs. But I want to remind you that precisely because you are Warmaster's most perfect brother, you should uphold his authority even more, rather than openly violate the rules. I believe you should immediately meet with the warlord and tell him everything that has happened, demonstrating your support for him. Oh, another dissenter, kill him. He murmured, tempting Fulgrim to reach for his sword. No, he is my perfect son. Fulgrim roared in his heart. He ignored the noise in his head, thought for a dozen seconds, and then spoke. Akurduana, you're right. After Horus became Warmaster, he sent several communications requesting a meeting. I have been working for the Emperor, preparing the Council of Nicaea. He stroked the beautiful winged goddess engraved on the gold ring on his right little finger, his father's words flashing through his mind. My son, you have always been pursuing perfection, and I am proud of your achievements. Horus will also rely on you, and I believe you will continue to pursue perfection and create brilliance for the Empire and my Warmaster. Fulgrim proudly puffed out his chest. After that, I fought in the Rawl. Now is the time for me to answer Warmaster's call. I will take the wrath of the Warmaster and return to Perdues, burning all the alien worlds and severing the heads of every alien. Eidolon stared at Akurduana, jealousy gnawing at his heart, while the throat bear had modified itched so badly he wanted to scream. Everyone else, disperse. Akurduana, you stay. Fulgrim's silver hair fluttered. We still have a lot to talk about. Vespasian looked at Akurduana with bright, hopeful eyes. He was right, only the father's most beloved son could advise his father. At the same moment that the Emperor's children of the 52nd Expeditionary Fleet were preparing to depart, Akurduana followed her father to his room. He stepped into the room and saw that every wall was adorned with exquisite paintings, depicting vibrant landscapes as well as scenes of Astartes fighting side by side with mortals on their expedition. Fulgrim approached a painting in the center of the room and examined the black-armored, gold-winged brothers depicted on it. His marble-like face shone brightly as he swung his gleaming sword, striking the robed alien. Open black lens bracket Nimrod defeated Phoenix, silver hand, his swordsmanship was as perfect as mine, close black lens bracket. Your swordsmanship is more perfect than Nimrod's, you possess the most perfect sword. A proud whisper said in his heart. Fulgrim smiled. Your painting has always been my favorite. You brought Nimrod to life. I don't think anyone can describe a Primarch, Akurduana said modestly. Open black lens bracket and no one can depict my lord, close black lens bracket. Fulgrim laughed, your pursuit of perfection in painting is just as great as your pursuit of swordsmanship. He took off his armor, put on a purple robe, and leaned back in his recliner. He picked up a green jadeberry with his fingers and put the specialty of the agricultural world of Rin into his mouth. Fulgrim savors the lychee top notes as they bloom in your mouth. My child, now there is an opportunity to make you even more perfect. Bear extracted fragments from the Lal genome and combined them with mutated Astartes seeds under controlled conditions. He can add a new organ to your body, which will make you even more perfect. Eidolon and many of his emperor's children voluntarily underwent the modification surgery, and they gained new powers. Open black lens bracket I have the power bestowed upon me by my lord, which is perfect enough, close black lens bracket. Akurduana thought to himself, Father, I don't want to have alien, filthy organs implanted in my body. I have noticed that Chief Apothecary Fabius is distributing various potions to the legions, and the Emperor's children are becoming corrupted by their dependence on them. Fulgrim chuckled and picked up a bottle of blue potion from the cabinet. I know it's just a drug. Fabius synthesized it by extracting genes from glands in the human body of Lars, and it replicated the functions of the thyroid gland and twin cysts. It can significantly enhance metabolism and physical strength, giving us a stronger burst of combat power and allowing us to fight for longer. He tossed the potion to Akurduana, saying, you should try it, you'll see how effective it is. Akurduana frowned, about to crush the potion in her hand, but then released her grip. Open black lens bracket I should offer it as a sacrifice to the Black Emperor, my lord surely knows what Bear and Eidolon are doing, close black lens bracket. Seeing that his son had accepted the medicine, Fulgrim smiled, stood up, and put his arm around his shoulder. We haven't practiced swordsmanship together in a long time, and we've improved to perfection. 1. We had plenty of time during Warp's journey. 930 Nimrod, even if you have 300,000, so what? You're just a stepping stone for me to become the Emperor of mankind. The newly established Wolf God Council of Vengeful Spirit is a magnificent hall with exquisite craftsmanship, designed by architect Peter Egan Momas. The company flags hung from both sides of the room, but there was something new about them that none of the sons of Horus could recognize. A throne made of stacked skulls, behind which rises a towering brass tower from a sea of blood. A black 8-pointed star depicting a pale sky. Since its construction, the Wolf God Council has completely replaced the former strategic room. Horus, seated atop his basalt throne, was not summoning members of the Council of Four Kings, but rather other advisors. His grand plan was not yet time for Sejanus's 3 remaining sons to know about it after his death. Primarch's attendant Malahurst, holding the data slate, said, "Warmaster, I have received a message from Tower Galmont. Your commander and envoy, Boros Kuhn, has personally delivered the letter you wrote to Leman Russ." "What did he say?" Horus asked. Leman Russ did not reply, but Kuhn observed the resupply situation of space wolves. The twisted Malahurst astutely identified important details in the report. "The Tower, Sage and Lords of Galmont, by your command, the Wolf Pack is permitted unrestricted access to the armory. The Wolf Pack transferred enough phosphorus weapons to the ship for a galactic cleansing operation, as well as various extermination weapons, including 4 viral bombs. This is enough to prove that Leman Russ has developed a completely new plan." Horus nodded in satisfaction. "How many wolf cubs do they have?" In order to extricate himself from the Cypher war zone as soon as possible, Leman Russ led the 1st and 7th companies in a decisive battle against the Askaric aliens. Of the 20,000 men, at least 5,000 were killed, and almost all the others were wounded. After he returned to Fenris, he gathered the hunting groups of the 4th, 5th, 8th and 12th companies, as well as parts of the 2nd and 13th companies, totaling 50,000 men. The 3rd, 9th, and 11th Dalian fleets are heading to Tower Galmont, and the punitive fleet assembled by Valdo is also on its way, expected to arrive in a standard month. Erebus gazed up at the 8-pointed star banner. "The wolves will destroy Prospero, and the false emperor will lose a major weapon against us, the psionic power of the Thousand Suns. Open black lens bracket, Order Shadow, is a greater threat, close black lens bracket." Horus thought to himself, without interrupting his advisor. The Wolf Pack will also pay the price. After Erebus finished his enthusiastic speech, Malahurst spoke up. "After speaking with you, Sanguinius has assembled his legions and is heading to Signath." Horus listened in silence, knowing the unwavering loyalty of his best brother and friend Sanguinius to the Emperor. He utilized the blood angels discovered by Sanguinius during the cleansing of Nephilim on Melgio's home planet. Darkness is a secret. He told his close friend that there were other Nephilim survivors, and that they were in Sinus, the only hope for the blood angels who were starving for blood. Horus glanced at the skull flag, which was actually a trap. His warp allies were already waiting in Cygnus to hunt down his brother. He hoped that the servants of the blood god would succeed in bringing Sanguinius into his camp. While Horus was pondering, Malahurst continued his report. "Jagatai Khan has assembled his legions and is heading to Shandik to purge the remnants of Ulank Urg's Greenskin Empire." Horus's eyes were deep as he drifted into memories. The Great Victory of Ulanor was his most glorious achievement to date, and also an important battle in his promotion to Warmaster. Open black lens bracket. I am about to achieve an even greater victory. Nimrod, father, you will both be defeated by me. Close black lens bracket. Shandex is only a few warp jumps away from Ulanor, but it is far from the warp route. Horus knew that if he publicly mentioned his grand plan to Jagatai, the stubborn man would openly turn against him. To subdue him, he needed a suitable trap. When he met with Jagatai, he found that the latter was not used to the changes in the expedition to be more stable and standardized. White Scars needs to evade the surveillance of Terra and the Remembrancers. Cleansing the remaining orcs in Shandex will satisfy their nomadic nature. He also prepared another trap in Shandex, which Omega would activate at the right moment. We also have 3 powerful enemies, Nimrod, Ryan, and Gilliman, whose legions each have over 200,000 warriors. Erebus emphasized the last word. The messengers of the gods whispered in my ear that Andraman will be the grave of Gilliman. Horus nodded. I will order him to assemble at Andmang and, together with the word-bearers, purge the Orcish Empire of Gazlark. Plendium was attacked by the Harud migration and told Lane that his mission was to cleanse the aliens. After a few seconds of thought, Malahurst praised. Lane has always considered himself an alien purifier, and he will be happy to carry out this order. Harud made Order Shadow pay the price of 80,000 lives, and Dark Angels will also suffer heavy casualties. Plendium is far on the western edge of the galaxy. By the time Ryan returned to the Empire after his victory, the outcome was already decided. Now, only one big problem remains, Nimrod. 1. Order Shadow may have more than 230,000, just as he concealed his territory, he may also have hidden his offspring. Horus had always harbored this suspicion ever since he saw the false Terrace, depicted by Erebus in the snake pit of Davin. Malahurst frowned. Very likely. I just finished reading Nimrod's biography yesterday. Combined with the records of the War Council, I found many secrets in it. Like Ryan and Omega, he has a lot of secrets. I believe his army should be 250,000 strong. No. Horus shook his head. Don't forget, Order Shadow has always been the largest legion. In 899, their numbers were close to 280,000, and they later took over the troops from that legion. What if their casualties weren't that high? The light shone on his shaved head. Order Shadow probably has 300,000 members. 300,000, Malahurst exclaimed. They fought so many brutal wars, Randon. Harud, huff. There can't possibly be that many. Even if he has it, there's no need to worry. I've prepared a series of baits for him, and he will fall into one trap after another. Horus said, seeing that neither of his advisors had offered a plan. Nimrod will not lead his entire army into battle. His territories scattered throughout the galaxy require troops to be stationed there. Even if he has 300,000 men, the number he can actually mobilize is extremely limited. He only has one chapter at Kalayam Gate, so it is impossible for him to send reinforcements to all his territories. He smiled confidently and ordered Nimrod to launch an attack on the Gordian League, which was resisting submission. Malahurst's eyes lit up. On the eastern edge of the galaxy, even after his victory, he didn't have time to return to the Empire. No, Nimrod isn't that easy to deal with. I have a second decoy. Diamond Star. Malahurst recalled Nimrod's biography. Nimrod had an extraordinary desire to control the Forge world, Enchiridion, Hyvalaria, Mezoa. He certainly couldn't resist the temptation. Horus nodded. His trap certainly wasn't just bait, it also included a swamp. Alpha, skilled in infiltration, has begun to infiltrate Nimrod's legions. Their covert operations will slow Nimrod's advance. This is also a test of Omega's loyalty. He is less trustworthy than his other followers. Horus didn't place all his hopes on Omega, he still had bait and traps ready to be set. After hearing Horus's arrangements, Primarch's attendant's initial shock gradually subsided, and he continued his report. In accordance with your orders, the hastily recruited soldiers I gathered in worlds such as Chthonia and Akum Sutu's cluster have begun to gradually join the Legion. Your decree of authority to the 5 knightly families, including the Aurelius family, has won their loyalty and freed them from the Empire's suspicion. In return, they have sworn allegiance to our representatives. Horus paused, then silently recalled. He established trade routes and forged patronage relationships and agreements with various powers. He recalled how he had secretly stockpiled weapons and resources, and treated his loyal commanders with special privileges. He had thought these were all done to make the Great Crusade go more smoothly, and were simply a reward for those who fought in his name. However, he used his Warmaster authority to deploy absolutely loyal troops to key locations. He sent disloyal troops to the bloodiest war zones. He realized that his ambition had already quietly sown seeds that would not arouse suspicion or sprout quickly. Now, the seed has sprouted. Horus gazed at the holographic image, a series of black images, which finally settled on the colonnade new district in the northeastern part of the galaxy. Nimrod, even if you have 300,000, so what? You are just a stepping stone for me to become the emperor of mankind. I will seize your largest territory. How can one of your chapters possibly stop the advance of my army? It will be the foundation of my great cause. Greater than 931 my 800 territories, built upon 11 Primarchs. After confirming that the Emperor's children fleet had left Perdu's anomaly, Nimrod immediately ordered a return to Kalayam Gate. Considering the upcoming great birthday celebration and the fact that the situation in the Perdu's region would not change, he decided to temporarily refrain from expanding in the area. On the one hand, he knew that the Eldar's decline would not improve in the next 10,000 years. Ulfway had territory but not enough power, especially population, to develop those maiden worlds. On the other hand, he also considered that it would not be worthwhile for the Arch-Eldar to go to war with the Ulfway before they obtained the Soul Stones. Once they obtain the Soul Stones, they can harvest more potion materials without increasing the difficulty of the war. For this, he is even willing to patiently wait another 3,000 years. Shadow of Sovereignty, Primarch Office. My lord, in accordance with your command, I have compiled a summary of the Legion's control over the worlds. Arsena Dun raises her wand, magnifying the northern part of the galaxy. Segmentum Obscurus is the foundation of the Legion, a sector centered on Vostroya with a diameter of 330 light-years. It has been fully explored and contains 359 habitable worlds. The key worlds within the sector include the Legion's homeworld Vostroya, the largest shipyard and fleet base Sepra Mundi, the star system Tricon with the largest industrial capacity, the primary recruitment world of the third chapter, the eternal night world Mordian, and the largest training base Islington. Primarch's attendant swings his wand, and the holographic image shifts to the northeastern part of the galaxy. The colonized new district is the Legion's second largest territory, with 318 locations developed worldwide. The Lord of Fate's achievements in the Cyclops cluster are remarkable. The industrial casting cluster formed by 105 industrial worlds is the most dense and productive region on the star cluster scale. In the entire empire, only the early achievements of Horus, Akum Sothith, can rival it. Lord of Fate has formally submitted a proposal to the empire to establish a new star sector, the Gothic sector. Council of Terra has not yet approved it. It won't be approved anytime soon, and Malkador doesn't have the energy to handle these matters anymore, Nimrod said. He doesn't have time. Arsena understood that the storm prophesied by the Black Emperor was about to erupt. You will lead us to stand firm in the storm and set sail. He continued, the Legion's key worlds in the northern region also include Kalayam Gate, the navigation hub and primary recruitment world of the 5th chapter. Alert Star, the third largest system in terms of defensive technology, weaponry, and population. Kasaj, the primary recruitment world of the 8th chapter. Visa, the primary source of untouchables. The Fahish region, centered on Duran, the Legion's third largest shipbuilding base and important industrial area. Simeon System, the primary source of even-numbered black gold and a high-gravity training center. And Broken Steel Fortress, the only foothold and training base outside the Astronomican illumination range. Compared to 899, Segmentum Obscurus only added Visa as a key world, but it was the most valued by Nimrod. The Visa people are an important source of the untouchables, and the warriors conceived by the Twilight Moon will be the foundation for him to build his own Imperial Guard in the future. The Legion's main hidden worlds in Segmentum Obscurus are Sonam 8, the recruiting world of the 4th chapter, and the 12 maiden worlds of Serpent's Cradle. Nimrod nodded. The Northwest Galaxy was the primary target for conquest after the Great Birthday celebration. His plan was to use the Giant Mouth as a boundary, with Order Shadow, conquering the side adjacent to the Empire's controlled territory and establishing the Calixus sector. After subduing Perturabo, he, a traitor to the Empire, will continue his great expedition on the other side of the Warp Storm and establish Coronis Expanse. He will have the opportunity to realize his ideals and build infrastructure according to his own ideas. Primarch's attendant, with her snow-white hair, turned her wand and pulled herself to the eastern region of the galaxy. The Legion also possesses a large amount of territory in the eastern part of the galaxy. The hidden Gardenar-centered subsector is the Legion's second largest industrial region and the main production area of tripod-walking mechs, with a population of hundreds of billions, second only to Necromunda. The 11 star systems of the Osiris sector have also been freed from the enslavement of the Osiris mind control seed. He shook the control stick, and the southern region of Ultima Segmentum rapidly expanded. North of Macragge, the Legion controls the Viridian system and the Ganyun system. West of Macragge, the Legion controls the Thalassa system. Nimrod gazes at Tower Lentus, who has been appointed by Glenn Worthodo, the former 13th Legion chief of the Corrosion, and now the 1st chapter chief of the Ultramarines, to govern this agricultural world. In the future, Titus, who possesses maximum warp resistance and has twice crushed warp energy sources with his bare hands, will be born into this world. The Legion still has 5 important worlds in the region: the world of Death Catachan, the world of Grasslands Attila, the world of Feudalism Mancora, the world of Agriculture Rin, and the world of Gems Ventrilian. His gaze swept across Mancora, the future home planet of the Roaring Lion chapter and the location of the Order Shadow Librarium. He was also a son of the awesome Gilliman. Rin is the offspring of Cow Dorn, and it is the homeworld of the future Crimson Fists chapter. Ventrilian is the homeworld of Auxilia, the Ventrilian noble army, and is also one of the 3 main recruitment worlds in Chapter 8. Catachan and Attila are the main recruiting worlds in Chapter 7. They are the home worlds of Auxilias, Catachan jungle warriors, and Attila barbarians, respectively. Arsena's narrow eyes moved, pulling the holographic image to the north side of Ultima Segmentum. Sark Trata Abyss is the Legion's largest territory in this region, reaching the scale of a sector. This region is rich in mineral resources, but its remote location makes it difficult to colonize and its development is slow. To date, only 52 worlds have been put into development, each with a population of less than 1 million, and are positioned as mining worlds. Nimrod had anticipated this. In order to conceal Saktrata, the scale of immigration was destined to be small, and slow development was to be expected. The Legion also has 2 large hidden territories in this area, the Arc-Edge Cluster and the Jingyuan Federation. The Arc-Edge Cluster was originally discovered by the Word-Bearers, who then sought help from the Space Wolves and the Thousand Suns, after which the 3 legions joined forces to conquer it. Jingyuan Federation is the 3rd largest achievement of Space Wolves. When Nimrod was working on it, its biggest gain was obtaining a complete STC and cultural data storage device. The Legion also has 7 important territories in this region: the Peltitis system, the industrial world Firestorm Star, the icy world Valhalla, the feudal world Aventinum, the ocean world Nactus, and the hive city worlds Pratis Z Tower and Nivalis on the eastern edge of the galaxy. He built Ryan's Tuchucha engine ahead of time on Peltitis V. Now, both Peltitis V and Planet 2 in the same system are industrial worlds. The former's production capacity is comparable to that of a secondary Forge world, while the latter is among the most advanced industrial worlds. He destroyed 4 worlds of the Gilliman Cubs, Firestorm Star, Aventinum, Pratis Z Tower, and Nivalis, which were originally slated to be the home worlds of the Aurora, Bronze Archon, Soul Reaper, and Silver Sanctuary chapters, respectively. He also boasted about Vulcan's future offspring, Nactus, who was originally supposed to be Darkness. Kraken's home planet. Valhalla is the homeworld of the Valhalla Ice Warrior, and is now the main recruitment world for the 4th chapter. Primarch's attendant rotates the wand, pulling the holographic image to the galactic center area. The Legion also controls 3 key cosmic regions in the Segmentum Solar, the Necromunda sub-sector centered on the 6 star systems of the Circle Spider Alliance, Alicia in the Prosperity Path, and the Tower of Civilization. Ariga. Aureus has been largely integrated into the Legion's system. His production capacity is no less than that of any Forge world, and he has a considerable number of unique standard template constructs. He continued to turn the control staff, heading towards the southern part of the galaxy. The Legion has only 1 territory in the Storm Sector, Roziki. In Nimrod's memory, Roziki was originally called Orpheus, named by the discoverer, rogue traitor Erika Orpheus. He dispatched the Lord of the Forge after Roziki Czech discovered that region of space; it was named after him. Roziki also followed his orders and found the Orphic key that originally belonged to Orphic Archon, which improved the overall capabilities of the Techmarines. The source of the Orpheus key is a fragment of a void dragon at the level of a supreme star god, which he will retrieve when he is able. After the great birthday celebration, he will launch a conquest of the surrounding space and establish the Roziki sector, which is the Orpheus sector in memory. Although Nimrod only has 1 planet in the Storm sector, his ally, the Forge world, is. Both Glia and Garifan IV are located in this area. High Valaria is one of his 4 affiliated Forge worlds. Of the 4 Forge worlds currently under Nimrod's control, Incaridian of Ultima Segmentum is completely under his control, and Mezzoa of Segmentum Obscurus relies on his defense. Shayna, Anacharis Scoria of the Typing sector, is vying for the Fabricator General position. He now has considerable control over the Forge world and is even closer to the Order Shadow than High Valaria. The Legion's territory in the Typing sector includes 9 planets in the Terra system and Tanith, the primary recruitment world of Chapter 12. Quote, to date, the Legion controls a total of 819 worlds. Nimrod nodded slightly. Open black lens bracket Lehman Russ is right, my legions have indeed slowed their pace. In the past century, just over 300 new worlds have been added, close black lens bracket. He knew there were 3 reasons. First, the Legion repeatedly explored the surrounding space, using Vostroya as its center, to establish a complete star sector. Therefore, it is inevitable to repeatedly pass through the known world, but this time expenditure is worthwhile, as potential unknown areas gradually become clear and new intersecting shipping routes are established. Secondly, many chapters devoted themselves to territorial building rather than expansion. In particular, the 6th chapter, except for those he was called up, was almost entirely based in the Colonnide New District, developing the Cyclops cluster. Finally, campaigns like Sark Trata Abyss and Lady Hera are remote and time-consuming. In particular, Lady Hera's homeworld has no development value except for ghosts. All resources were drained by Lady Hera tens of millions of years ago. Open black lens bracket yes, the origin space and psionic Drake's territory is also my domain, close black lens bracket. Origin space, in particular, while currently unusable, holds the potential to become a cross-dimensional hub in the future. Nimrod recalled all the worlds and pocket dimensions. Open black lens bracket I've really outdone quite a few people, just Primarch alone has, close black lens bracket. Ryan, Hannibal, Perturabo, Lehman Russ, Dawn, Phoenix, Gilliman, Horus, Lorger. Vulcan, well, the Ball Predator, Sanguinius also counts, 11. Of my 821 territories, a significant portion can be said to have been built upon 11 Primarchs. While Nimrod was pondering, Arsena put away the data slate. My lord, Horus has issued a command, ordering you to subdue the Gordian League, which has rebelled against the Empire's allegiance. Greater than. 932 Horus, I stepped into the trap you prepared for me. Open black lens bracket Gordian League, close black lens bracket Nimrod silently recited the term in his mind, and then found the relevant memory in his mind. Horus assigned me a script for Ryan. Gordian League, Diamond Star, Saw Llamas, Triple Throttle, Ghoul Sector. Conrad Kurz. Nimrod knew that the Night Lords, skilled in guerrilla warfare, were a formidable opponent. In fact, although Ryan ultimately won the battle, he failed strategically. Although the Dark Angels suffered only 10,000 casualties, Warmaster achieved his strategic objective, to keep Ryan tied down on the eastern frontier for 3 years. He also knew that without the Emperor, who was already incredibly powerful, with a Relic-class battleship and a Tuchucha engine, along with Conrad Kurz's madness, the guerrilla warfare could last 3 years and then another 3 years. Open black lens bracket Diamond Star, Triple Far, Ghoul Sector. Horus really threw me some good bait. Nimrod knew that the Night Lords were actually the largest legion in terms of territory before the Great Birthday celebration. The Ghoul Sector encompasses the Saw Llamas Sector, the sector named after the mother star Nostromo, the Great Lord. The Tess Sector, the Icatan Deep Space, the Salvacar Cluster, and the Gorgorod Protectorate, encompassing almost the entire northeastern region of the Milky Way. Of course, a vast territory does not equate to a large actual number of lands. On the one hand, the vast majority of the world is a desolate, ruined world. The Ghoul stars are completely outside the Astronomican's illumination, and the navigators refuse to risk their lives to enter this region of space. On the other hand, Conrad Kurz and his descendants, who operated their lands in a fearful manner, never developed their lands as much as the Ultramarines. Open black lens bracket It's good to be in a remote location, so I can stay out of Terra's sight, close black lens bracket. Sesso is very likely an ingredient for potions. The Triple Foul and the Gorgorod Protectorate, and even the shattered Nostromo destroyed by Conrad Kurz, are of extremely high value. A broken planet is not suitable for human habitation, but because of the damage, the underground mineral deposits are exposed and easier to mine. Those worlds that were not mineral-rich before they shattered became mineral-rich worlds after they shattered. After Nostromo shattered, the adamantite veins were completely exposed to the void. With this in mind, Nimrod decided to step into the trap Horus had prepared for him and take the Ghoul stars into his possession. Open black lens bracket Yes, this also makes it easier for me to control Crave, close black lens bracket. Origin Space's only real-world entrance. Horus, I have fallen into the trap you have prepared for me. I shall see just how capable you are. Besides Conrad Kurz and Night Lords, what else have you prepared for me? After deciding on the main direction of expansion during the Great Birthday celebration, Nimrod immediately began to consider how to deploy his forces. He looked at Arsenadun and asked, Teleportation. What is the status of door deployment? My lord, in all the cosmic realms I just reported to you, every key world has a teleportation system. Door. Primarch's attendant answered. All 41 key nodes are connected to the Kalium Gate. At the same time, we had established a teleportation agreement with each other before acquiring the Kalium Gate. Door also works. Nimrod nodded, thus enabling Order Shadow to successfully conduct warp voyages during the Great Birthday celebration, allowing for rapid maneuvering between various territories. Even if attacked, as long as they can hold out for a period of time, they will receive support. Other loyalist fleets could only rely on luck, and most would get lost in the warp storm. As he pondered, Primarch's attendant continued his report. The lightweight solar generator standard template construct we obtained from Aureus can meet the requirements of Epsilon. Electricity demand for the Type 5 forging furnace complex. Archmagos, after improvements, made it for teleportation door-powered systems can reduce warp flight energy consumption by an average of 36.95%. That's great news, Nimrod said with a smile. Spider Alliance teleportation door technology, compared to warp navigation, has the disadvantage of high energy consumption in addition to directional navigation. Nimrod established his territory across the scattered galaxies, relying on the Kalium Gate and teleportation. After the door system is fully integrated, another key issue needs to be considered. Which of Horus's territories will he attack? First and foremost, its colonized new district. The industrial capacity directly controlled by Horus, or like the Akum Sutus cluster, is located in the Sol system. Or like Diamond Star, although it is a level 1 forge world, it is not enough to support an entire legion, let alone satisfy all the rebel legions. The Cyclops cluster's 105 industrial worlds are the most suitable foundation, providing him with a stable base once he takes control of this comprehensive industrial star system. In his eyes, my 6th chapter numbered only 20,000, which was no match for his massive army. Secondly, there is the Kalayam Gate. Even if the rebels have the aid of chaos, the loyalists will certainly think of using it, which will naturally attract attacks from traitors. In Nimrod's memory, Jagatai Khan's initial plan was to return to Terra via the incompletely restored Kalayam Gate. Finally, there are the main recruitment worlds of Vostroya and each chapter, which are rich in resources, especially in terms of a large number of suitable soldiers. Before deciding to deploy troops, Nimrod pondered one last crucial question: his strategic objectives. The primary objective is naturally to kill Angron and advance to Earl of the Fallen. The spare tire is Fulgrim. Secondly, the Cow Perturbo. Third, the Primordial 1 prototype on the Moon and the Selena gene cult will form the basis for future research on the Primordial Astartes. Fourth, Dora Kal, a key figure in the research of Astartes. Fifth, the homeworld of the traitorous legions. Sixth, Iron Ring. Seventh, the Akum Sutus cluster, Horus's most brilliant achievement in conquest, he wanted it. Eighth, Forge World Shana. Alexandria IV, Karain, a distant galaxy. Nimrod's brain raced, taking into account the current objective, enemy movements, and time and mobility factors to formulate a deployment plan. Reply to Warmaster: I will follow his orders and submit to the Gordian League. Summon the 4th, 7th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th chapters, and after leaving the necessary guards in their respective territories, they shall accompany me on my campaign. The 3rd and 8th chapters gather at Kalayam Gate. Kalayam Gate has an artificial war satellite and 5 Romulus-class star forts, so it doesn't actually need 3 chapters to guard it. In Nimrod's plan, these 2 chapters and the 5th chapter all have other missions. 1st chapter gathers in Alicia. 2nd chapter, carrying all the 3-legged walking mechs, heads to High Valaria. Chapter 6 enters the highest level of preparation. Follow your will. Arsena wrote down the Black Emperor's command. What is the deployment and deployment status of Romulus-class star fort? Nimrod asked. The proper use of core strategic assets can change the course of a battle to some extent. Greater than 933. The Black Emperor rebuilds the rebellion army. Arsena Dunn took 3 seconds to process the information about Romulus-class star fort in her mind before giving a methodical report. My lord, the Legion currently has 6 large shipyards capable of manufacturing Romulus-class star forts. Among them, Sepramundi's shipbuilding capabilities are top tier within the Empire. Only Mars and Forge World possess such capabilities. Worth, Lorraine, and Goldwood are comparable. Nimrod was not surprised at all. Sepramundi, as the naval base of the future Segmentum Obscurus in his memory, was one of the 5 largest shipyards during the Great Crusade era. Ganyun, the Gantz twin-star shipbuilding complex and Kaz have surpassed Tricon and Vostroya in shipbuilding capabilities. After the transformation of the Fagiano shipbuilding network centered on Duran, it also has the capability to build Romulus-class star forts. In addition, we have licensed Forge World. Lucius and Mezzoa built Romulus-class star forts, which, after meeting their own defense needs, have consistently met our deployment requirements. After reporting on the construction capabilities of the Romulus-class star fort, the Primarch's attendant concluded by saying, to date, a total of 29 have been built in Legion territories, with Lucius and Mezzoa contributing 8 and 6 respectively. Of these, 38 had already been deployed, with 4 destroyed during the Randan War, the Harud War, and the Grell Orc invasion. Kalayam Gate is protected by 5 satellites and 1 artificial war satellite. Colonnide New District has 5 Abyss ports, 1 Monarch, and 2 Orcs blocking Grell Abyss. We have deployed a total of 13 star fortresses in Randan War, including Xuanzhao Morse's first Romulus-class star fortress. Ramirez serves as a research base. Forge World Shana, a single foothold guarding the broken steel fortress beyond the galaxy, you bestowed upon Lord Perturabo. Nimrod had long prepared an escape route for Perturabo in the event of his rebellion, the Randan homeworld in the northwest of the galaxy, beyond the illumination of Astronomicon. Vostroya is protected by 2 artificial war satellites and 1 Sark Trata Abyss, and 1 Gardenar. Star fortresses forged by Ganyun, Gan's twin stars, and Kaz were deployed to the eastern territories of the galaxy, with 1 each in Ganyun, Veridian, Osiris, and Thalassa. Currently, the Legion has 5 completed but undeployed Romulus-class star forts, with 4 more expected to be completed within the next 5 years. Lucius has 1 completed fort, and Mezzoa has 1 under construction. After a moment's thought, Nimrod gave the order, require Lucius's Romulus-class star fort to move to Kalayam Gate, and prepare to deploy the 5 that have already been built. Nimrod then considered how to mobilize allies. Open black lens bracket. My objectives involve 5-star systems. I shouldn't concentrate all allies in one war zone. Close black lens bracket. Summon Wangquan No. 8 Dark Fire, the steel skull of the steel ball. Titan Legion and Incaradians, Tiger Eye, Titan Legion and the Mordred Knights to participate in the war. Although Riza of Ultima Segmentum is also an ally, Forge World has always been threatened by the Orcs, who have been building Titan killers for the Order Shadow, the Stormblade super heavy tanks to replace the Titans. Calling typing sector Wonquan number 8 Dark Fire, is a reference to the Titan, which was also split from the Titan Legion and was loyal to Horus's King of Destruction. Nimrod paused for a second, then smiled and said, "Transmit my command. When using psionic powers, there is no need to consider other legions." He knew that the 9 Primarchs, including Dorn who opposed the use of psionic powers, would eventually lift the ban and rely on the power of the librarians. For them, Psyker is the most effective way to combat chaos. Ryan would even deliver a flying headbutt to the priest Nimir who tried to stop him. Everyone knows how to use it, there's no need to pretend anymore. I will obey your command. After writing down the Black Emperor's commands one by one, the silver-haired Primarch's attendant's communication bead in his ear hummed. He raised his hand, pressed the communication bead, listened to the message, and then reported to the Black Emperor. "My lord, Anos, the representative of the Squat Alliance, has arrived and awaits your summons." Nimrod smiled and nodded. "Let him in." A moment later, the quartermaster, who was slightly taller than Nimrod, walked into the Primarch office. He began in standard Vostonian. "Lord Nimrod, Squat's envoy Anos pays homage to you." "Mr. Ambassador, welcome," Nimrod said with a smile. Anos gazed at the towering giant behind his desk, who seemed even more majestic than his physical form, like a vast star in the galactic center. He took a deep breath and, with the will bestowed upon him by the ancestral core, focused his attention back on the present matter. "We received your message that you said you had a major deal to discuss with us." "That's right," Nimrod nodded. "2 transactions. I hope to hire more space dwarves to fight in the next 15 years. Anos was taken aback. "Your legion is one of the largest, and the Iron Oath regiment that fights alongside you has 20,000 warriors. Do you need more warriors?" "A storm is about to break out," Nimrod said solemnly. "I need more power." Anos heard the sound of anvils being struck in Primarch's low voice, and the roaring fire in the furnace heralding the coming of war. "Within my authority, I can provide you with 40,000 Forgeborns." "Warrior. Of course, they can't fight for you for our friendship like before, and you'll need to pay them for hiring them. I will also convey your wishes to the various guilds and try to secure more warriors for you, they also need compensation." No problem, Nimrod said with a smile. Sark Trata Abyss and Ghoul Sector were short of manpower, but not of minerals. Arsena will negotiate with you, he will offer a satisfactory price. Anos's breath hitched, as if he saw countless gold coins glittering. As a representative of the Alliance, he would receive a substantial reward if he facilitated the guild's hiring of him, in accordance with Space Dwarves' custom. He gathered his thoughts. What's the other deal? Soon I will have several planets to drag. Nimrod's intention in taking the Nimrod Rebellion's homeworld wasn't simply to plunder it, he wanted to take the entire planet with him. In addition to resources, he also needs to rebuild the rebel army. After obtaining the Primordial 1 prototype, he was able to use the Primarch's genetic material to create space marines for other legions, including the Rebel Legion. Gilliman was worried about their defection, but Nimrod had no such concerns. The 6th layer of the Nation of Disorder can be the corrosion gene seed. Of course, the rebuilt Legion culture must be reshaped according to his will. No problem, Anos said proudly. We once gifted you a star, if you are willing to pay enough, we can drag the entire galaxy away. Of course, we cannot guarantee the safety of those above. You must evacuate them in advance. After reaching a preliminary agreement with the Squat Alliance ambassador, Nimrod immediately stood up and took a step out where no one was around. It's time to deal with the World Eaters problem, which will soon be purged in Istanbul. Times 934 World Eaters 2-in-1 strategy to avoid purge of loyal faction. In the 4th dimension of the Nation of Disorder, Nimrod's spirituality spread, touching the chief apothecary of the World Eaters. Gulan Surik's spiritual orb. He saw that Garland was completely wrapped in a black robe, and there was only an operating table around him, with no one else around. With a thought, Nimrod pulled Garland into the Nation of Disorder. Garin was swallowed by the black mist and soon arrived at a mysterious kingdom within the mist. He looked up into the depths of the black mist and saw the Black Emperor sitting high on his throne. Garin knelt on one knee. My lord. I am currently in Tiredsima, the capital of Burt, overseeing the recruitment efforts of the Crimson Priests and the Ember Wolves of Salem. Nimrod nodded. He knew that Burt was one of the original territories of the World Eaters, serving as a recruitment ground and defense base for the Legion. The world, once arid, has been transformed into a gas-filled hell as World Eaters and their allies conduct weapons testing in Burt. Candidates aspiring to become World Eaters will engage in brutal battles against the Auxilia gang in the irradiated wasteland, and those who survive will become candidates. Mago and the others from the 18th Company could no longer tolerate the depravity of the noble war hounds. They asked me more and more frequently how long they could endure it. In the past year, Mago, the company commander of the 21st Company, Kalog, and the company commander of the 37th Company, Captra, came to Burt one after another to ask me about it in person. Mago has come twice this year, and he is still in Terrasima. The time has come, Nimrod said in a deep voice. Garland simply reported the World Eaters' anxiety to the Black Emperor, without expecting any decree. He breathed a sigh of relief. He wasn't good at persuasion. Every time he calmed down the anxious and angry Mago and others, he relied on the scented oil candles prepared by Mandrake and others. More importantly, he can also escape the quagmire and serve the Black Emperor. But not all. When Garland heard the Black Emperor's deep voice, his heart sank. The Warmaster has betrayed the Emperor, and Angron has pledged his allegiance to him. Garland's pupils dilated rapidly. The Emperor's firstborn son, his beloved son Horus, had betrayed the Empire. Angron will summon the Legion to Istvan, where he will purge the Legion's disloyal offspring from Planet 3. Angron, Garland thought of the Jenna orbit, the Angron's merciless slaughter of its offspring in the Conqueror Hall, and silently accepted the cruel reality. Therefore, Mago and his companions had to change their destination before arriving in Istvan. My lord, where are they going? Garin asked respectfully. Colonnade New District. Nimrod recalls that Istvan is near the Colonnade New District, and there was no warp turbulence on the warp route between the two. After Istvan III's purge, one of the few surviving loyalists' destinations was Colonnade New District. Horus's decision to immediately lead the Sons of Horus, and Mortarians, Death Guard, to launch an offensive against the Colonnade New District after defeating Istvan was also for this reason. Garland's brain raced, and he spoke a few seconds later. My lord, there will be approximately 40,000 people. Nimrod nodded slightly. He had this in mind when he sent most of the Cow's World Eaters to the Colonnade New District. World Eaters will strengthen the defenses of Colonnade New District while also avoiding being purged, killing two birds with one stone. Blackstone Fortress can withstand space battleships, but ground warfare still relies on Astartes, Titans, and Knights. Dreger and the other World Eaters who are calm and do not usually show any obvious discontent will remain in the Legion for the time being. Nimrod recalled that Company Commander Dreger was the most clear-headed person among the World Eaters. He was not purged and participated in the Siege of Terra. He always wore blue and white Warhound's armor, disdaining to fall into Khorne. Nimrod needs them to stay with Angron temporarily to track his movements before his ascension and seize the opportunity. Garin also has a mission, and Tirad-Sima's ultimate value should belong to Nimrod. Garland was stunned for a moment. He hadn't expected the Black Emperor to know so much about the Legion's situation and who Angron would purge. Open black lens bracket. Our Lord is the true God, and naturally knows. Close black lens bracket. He regained his composure and respectfully obeyed the order. Follow your will, Garin said respectfully, and the black mist immediately engulfed him, sending him back to the apothecary in Tirad-Sima. Garin clasped his hands together, silently recited the prayer vow 11 times, and then released his hands. He donned his armor in the dim light. Galland ascends step by step along the spiral passage. He quickly typed runes into the Thinker's interface. As the cold mist dissipated, Chief Apothecary stepped out of the great door and simultaneously activated his communicator. Mago, I have good news for you. Heavy breathing came through. Gulan, damn it, come quick. How depraved we have become. The communication was abruptly cut off. Garland glanced at the location rune on the tactical interface, Training Ground 48. 19 minutes later, Stormbird slowly descended amidst the swirling sandstorm. Garland stepped off the deck and looked around. He saw 8 new recruit instructors lying in the dust and sand, their armor buried under the grayish-green sand. Surrounding them stood many teenagers holding sticks and knives, their bodies tattered. An 8-year-old boy had his right arm broken, and blood was dripping down his face. His face was pale, and his left hand gripped the blade tightly. Not far away, the tall Auxilia blood dripped from the warrior's axe blade. His neck was painted with blood-red warhounds, his throat was clenched, and he dared not utter a sound. 10 meters away from the Auxilia gang members and the boy stood Orontus, the 18th Company's battle-axe champion. Gulan, what exactly are you doing? Amidst the swirling sandstorm, Mago rushed towards Garin. Candidates for the Legion should undergo rigorous training, but not brutal slaughter. They are children, and you make them fight against the scum of Auxilia. All eyes fell on Mago, then quickly looked away. They looked into the sandpit and saw dozens of torn corpses. Mago didn't show the same mercy to them as he did to the World Eaters, he simply knocked them unconscious. Garland calmly switched to the encrypted channel. After Angron arrived in Dorset, he established the Legion's recruitment method. I couldn't stop him. Are you just going to let everything happen? Mago questioned. Where is the hope you promised? You can't see those people. They're engrossed in killing. They don't even need your spray gun. His roar made the boys with blood on their knives tremble. Garland responded in the encrypted channel. My promise is of course valid. I told you to wait patiently for hope, and now the time has come. Horus has rebelled, and Angron will purge the disloyal offspring of the Legion in Istvan III. What? Mago exclaimed in surprise. The great Warmaster, Lupercal. Horus actually betrayed the Empire. Mago's thoughts suddenly shifted, his mind flashing back to the events of Quadrini, Buho, Tricardan, and Cestars IV, who failed to complete the conquest within 31 hours of their deaths, and Angron's 11-fold slaying. They also failed to complete the orbit around Jenna. Angron, because of his own defiance, ordered himself to strangle the recruit Salil. Terminator's Bardo tried to comfort him, but he tore the pieces apart. The Widowmaker is soaked in the blood of his offspring. You tell me this is hope, what kind of hope is this? His butcher's nails buzzed. Calm down. Garin touched his waist with his gauntlet, and a cool and quiet scent spread out, penetrating Mago's breathing grill. What you need to do now is to gather all those who will be purged by him. Prevent them from going to Istvan. Your destination is Colonnade New District. The buzzing grew fainter and fainter, the territory of Lord Nimrod. That's right. Garland raised his voice. The hope I speak of is Lord Nimrod. He will accept you, and you will stand as proud warhounds against your cruel father who betrayed you. The buzzing sound faded away. Mago recalled how Lord Nimrod repeatedly gave the Reapers opportunities, transforming them from bloodthirsty Reapers into Order Shadows. I see. In the fourth level of the Nation of Disorder, Nimrod looked down at the spiritual sphere and slowly withdrew the spreading spirituality. Nimrod has just used mystical connections to influence Mago, making him believe Garland's words and agree to go to Colonnade New District. Colonnade New District is facing the main forces of two legions, so it's not a very safe option. As he pondered, his spirituality spread, touching another sphere of spiritual light. 935 Dorn, since I've already gone this far, I won't leave you anything. Open black lens bracket at this point. I hope readers will remember our domain name, Taiwan Novel Network. For a better reading experience, visit twcon.com, close black lens bracket. Nimrod spread his spiritual energy, touching the spiritual orbs of Alcahazfar and Narit Kiran, and after confirming that they were alone, pulled them into the Kingdom of Disorder. The two knelt in the darkness and then looked at each other. Through the darkness, they could vaguely make out each other. Lord Arcahaz. Narit paid his respects to his former legion commander. Narit. Nimrod leaned against the throne and began to speak. Horus has betrayed the Empire and is about to launch a rebellion. Warmaster. The two gasped in surprise as they recalled the days of the Great Crusade, when Horus had commanded them to defeat countless enemies of humanity. Alcahaz, you will immediately lead your team and secretly proceed along the border of the Empire to the new district of Colonnade. Nerith, move towards the Samaras sector and await my orders. The place of exile for Ash Claw was the Ghoul Starfield, so he was quite familiar with the situation there. Arcahaz and Narit regained their composure and calmed their turbulent thoughts. Follow the will of the gods. After Nimrod sent them back to the real world, his spiritual influence spread, reaching Agu Khan of the White Scars, and the apothecary Narasong, ordering them, who were wandering in the northern part of the Milky Way, to go to the new district of Colony. The 6th War Group actually has 36,000 men, plus more than 40,000 World Eaters and 13,000 Space Sharks, which means nearly 90,000 men can be deployed for frontal defense, far exceeding the 20,700 recorded by the War Council. And then there are the White Scars, skilled in guerrilla warfare, who harass and ambush the enemy. Nimrod's deep voice echoed through the darkness. He gathered his thoughts and once again spread his spiritual energy, touching Aka Hanland's spiritual sphere. After confirming that no one was around Arkham, he pulled Arkham into the Kingdom of Disorder. Akin bowed to the Black Emperor, who sat high on the throne, and said, "My lord." Horus betrayed the Empire. Arkham remained calm. He had told the Emperor long ago that the Primarchs were brutal monsters and should not lead the Great Crusade. Of course, the Black Emperor is not like that, he is Messiah. Ferris, Paturabo, and Vulcan possess mechanical perception, which they barely qualify as adequate. Open black lens bracket as expected, the Emperor is not Messiah, close black lens bracket. The Emperor foolishly appointed number 16 as Warmaster, and he reaped the bitter fruit of his actions. Looking down at Arkham, Nimrod said that even the eccentric Saint Giles and Horus, who were beloved throughout the Empire, were merely numbers 9 and 16 in his eyes. If it weren't for his talent, which even the Emperor relied on, and his use of the title, primary, to refer to him, he might not have become a sage of the ranks. His talent is beyond doubt. He made archaeological discoveries of the General Motors Rand engine, Rand speedboat, Rand Raider, Rand Creeper multi-purpose heavy engineering vehicle, and other STC series. However, with the help and support of the senior lawyers he sent, Akahan still successfully rose to the rank of Great Sage. He was not alone. He founded the Rand sect, adhering to the philosophy of rejecting the mechanization of the body and preserving the physical body intact. They explored various Mars ruins and unearthed many lost technologies, with the glass grenade being their greatest discovery. Now is the time for Arkham to use his influence to gain benefits for himself in the Mars split. Regulus, the messenger of the 16th, is about to return to Mars, Nimrod said, echoing Arkham's words. Kelbo Ha will open the Emperor's sealed Morrowick cellars, the Destroyer Code will corrupt him and his followers, and the Darkness Mechanic will be born. Arkham's expression changed. Does that mean Mars will split and fight a civil war? That's right, you should be well aware of the many contradictions Mars is currently facing, Nimrod said. Yes, my lord is wise, said Akahan. The wise men are embroiled in a power struggle, tensions are high, and espionage and violent attacks against rival factions' foundries are escalating. Rumor has it that the Titan Legion has already begun to secretly choose sides. Nimrod nodded slightly and gave the order. Your primary task is to obtain the prototype design template for the new powered armor from Foundry Agent Kane in the Thinker's Warehouse at the Temple of Foundry in Mondus Okurum. The most valuable part of the Mars split is the design template for the Mark 7 Eagle-powered armor. This secret was known to very few, except for Mars' casting director, Kelber Ha, casting agent, Kane, and the Sigilite, Micardo. After learning of the war that had broken out in Mars, Micardo revealed this secret to Roger Dorn, the Terra Guard. Secondly, there are the data and finished products of the Mark 6 powered armor stored by Mondus Okurum and Mondus Gamma. Nimrod remembered that Dorn was willing to risk his warriors and the safety of the solar system to obtain these two important assets. He worried that the punitive fleet would be unable to wipe out Horus's rebels. For this purpose, he dispatched Sigismund and Camba Diaz with 4 companies of the Imperial Fist and 30 Imperial Guards sent by Mikado to Mars. They eventually took away thousands of Mark 6 sets. The Mark 4 and weapons already stored in the Temple of Mondus Okurum were also taken away. Nimrod remembered that Kane had done his best to help Sigismund send 12,000 Mark 4s and 24,000 weapons from the stockpile to the evacuation fleet. Imperial Fist and Loyalists were able to equip themselves with large quantities of the new powered armor. Although he was prepared and unlike other Loyalists who lacked Mark 4, since he wanted cows, he naturally wanted to pack them all up and take them with him. Those with greater value have already been acquired, and the others are even less likely to be overlooked. After all, war inevitably results in losses, and replenishment is always a good thing. Open black lens bracket Dorn, since I've already gone this far, I'm not leaving you anything, close black lens bracket. You. Good luck to you. T. The Titan Legion, the Skull of Death, will stand at the edge of Kelbo Hawks, but the Lord of Storms, Titan Legion of Mars and the Knights of Tower Lannis will remain loyal to the Empire. You tried your best to persuade them to leave Mars as you had suggested. Nimrod knew that not all of the Titan Legions, whom the 3 armies of Mars referred to as the Lord of Storms, had betrayed the Empire. During the Great Expedition, the Supreme Captain made a wise decision that later led to the division of the Legion. The Lord of Storms Legion has been granted the authority to station troops on key planets in the S-Towerban and Orestes systems for its meritorious service. He brought the most severely damaged Titan back to Mars and handed over the main force of the Legion to his adjutant, Captain Maxim Kalanias. In the decades that followed, the Legion developed into 2 independent systems with no direct connection, self-supplied and fighting their own wars. Kalania is skilled in conspiracy and is a follower of the numerology school, the teleologists. This sect claims to be able to predict the coming apocalypse from past disasters. Kalanias also refused to acknowledge that the Emperor was O Messiah. Warmaster discovered his secret before his Mars Legion colleagues and invited him to join his side. He saw the prophecy of the end times and pledged allegiance to the Warmaster. Ultimately, after the deaths of Mars' Supreme Captain, Stormlord Cavalerio, and other Loyalist captains, Kalanias became increasingly convinced that his prophecies had come true. He then seized control of the Forged World Tower 3 and purged all factions loyal to the Emperor. The Tower Lanni's family, with Ralph Marvin and another knight surviving after the Mars split. Marvin went through many hardships to rebuild the First Knight family. After hearing the Black Emperor's order, Arkham pondered for 12 seconds before speaking. My lord, I will do everything in my power to fulfill Ni's divine decree. But my followers are not known for their fighting prowess. The Shadows of Order are powerful, but 30 of them are not enough to complete Ni's mission. No need to worry. Nimrod's voice hummed like the deep Om Messiah bell. I have already made arrangements, and you will receive assistance at that time. What you need to do now is to establish contact with Kane, Stormlord Cavaliero, and Marvin of the Tower Lannis family. At the same time, you should seek the help of Ms. Cori Zess, the Lord of Magma City, to build more temples using the newly developed Space of Thought. The reasons could be archaeological research and technological development. Nimrod recalls that when the Mars split officially broke out, obfuscation swept through most of the Loyalist temples along the network. Only a handful of caste temples that employed new spatial thinking have survived. Following Ni's will, Akahan replied respectfully. After Nimrod sent Arkham back to Mars, his spiritual influence spread to Akurduana, the second company commander of the Emperor's Children. Quote, a hazy, dreamlike scene unfolded before him, and he saw Akurduana following behind Fulgrim, whose hair was as white as snow. Walking alongside him was Warmaster. Nimrod has withdrawn his spirituality and can only arrange for the people in Emperor's Children to be included later. Greater than 936. The Black Emperor is more powerful, more perfect, and more charming than the Warmaster. This book was first published online by twcon.com. The Soul of Vengeance, Horus Lupkal's private chamber. Fulgrim sat down opposite Horus and watched him use his mouth to slice open the apple flesh with the gleaming serpent-handled dagger. A mysterious power, imperceptible to the naked eye, permeates the air. Fulgrim felt uncomfortable and spoke up. Your injury is healing very well. Horus put the apple in his mouth. You heard. Horus shrugged, his eyes deep. I tried to prevent the message from reaching other expeditionary fleets, worried that it would affect the morale of the soldiers. It's nothing, just a small cut on my shoulder. Fulgrim sensed a lie. I heard you were dying back then. I survived, and I am stronger than ever before. Fulgrim raised his glass, then let's toast to your such a rapid recovery. He quickly raised his voice, a smile spreading across his face. He felt pleasure in clashing with such a powerful being as Warmaster. Be patient, the truth will be revealed soon. The voice echoed in Fulgrim's mind. Trust Horus, your destiny is inextricably linked to him. Fulgrim frowned slightly, he wouldn't wait. He looked inquisitively at the dagger in Horus's hand. Tell me about your perfect rebirth. Horus stared intently at Fulgrim, feeling the brother's burning flame of pursuit of perfection raging in the warp. An irresistible urge was swelling within him, an irresistible urge to draw Fulgrim in. Horus spoke, and spoke for 3 days straight. He candidly recounted to Fulgrim the 63rd Expeditionary Fleet's experience of being cut open on the Daven, Eugene Tomba's betrayal and the wound inflicted by the Nemesis blade. He briefly mentioned the dream within the Temple of the Serpent God, but recounted in detail the great truth he witnessed and the terrible deception of his father. Fulgrim felt a chill run down his spine, the alien wizard's warning had actually come true. Every time he wanted to speak out against his brother's accusations against their father, a powerful force within him compelled him to abandon his opinion. The Emperor lied to us. Horus's words made Fulgrim's muscles tense. He will abandon us in the cold Milky Way and exalt himself to be a god. As he spoke, he stretched out his mouth. Look, the book of the word, his pastor preached on my ship. Fulgrim's fingers trembled as he finished reading the dozen or so pages of text in his hands. Fulgrim gazed at the imperial mural on the wall. I always wanted to be like him. What supports me on my journey to the stars is that perfect being, Fulgrim said. My father was a shining example of perfection, but now you have robbed me of my dreams. Horus jumped up abruptly. We all believed that the Emperor was the embodiment of perfection, but we were all wrong. He is not perfect, he is just a person. All our past pursuits have been lies. When we bring the light of science and reason to mortals, they worship a false god and pray to him for protection. He roared and swung his fist at the mural, smashing the Emperor's portrait to pieces. The broken canvas fell from the wall and hit the metal deck. Fulgrim stared blankly as he released the paper from his hand and watched the fragments drift down. He wept, his heart as desolate as the mural, his love for the Emperor tearing from his chest, for such a sordid thing. Brother, I know you are in great pain. Severing your tongue on a lie is never a pleasant thing. Horus stood up, walked to him, knelt on one knee, and took Fulgrim's hand. But I must say, I need my closest brother to stand by my side. I beg you to stand with me at the mouth. He stared intently into Fulgrim's eyes, his words earnest and sincere. I can't do it without you. My brother, my phoenix, my hope, soar in the darkness, breaking free from the shackles of fate. Reborn from the ashes. Join Horus, and you will become more perfect. The whispered enticingly. Fulgrim met his brother's sincere gaze and asked, what do you want me to do? At the same time, the officers on the deck had a quarrel. Lord Commander Vespasian looked around and asked Akerduana across from him. Have you convinced your father? Akerduana frowned slightly and shook her head. He believes that organ implants and drugs can make us more perfect. Vespasian looked at Akerduana with disappointment. He hadn't expected that even Fulgrim's beloved eldest son couldn't persuade him. After pondering silently for a long time, he spoke. Then I must speak with him verbally. I don't recommend that you object to him, Akerduana advised. For the sake of the Emperor's children, and for the sake of my father, I must speak with him, Vespasian said resolutely. Just as Akerduana was about to speak, his communicator with Vespasian suddenly rang. They connected at the same time, and then stood up together. They then joined forces with Eidolon. The Emperor's children stood at the entrance and saw Warmaster walking side by side with his father. Akerduana, champion of Paratine, I've heard of your achievements. Horus walked up to Akerduana and patted him on the shoulder affectionately. You step onto the battlefield like a perfect dancer, the most powerful warrior to behead the enemy. You have done more in this regard than Abaddon. I don't think so. With his top knots flashing past Warmaster, Azerkel Abaddon walked to his other side and sized up Akerduana. Akerduana felt the power and warmth of Warmaster's large hand, which forcefully penetrated her shoulder armor. The majestic image of the Black Emperor flashed through his mind. He had seen beings that were more powerful, more perfect, and more charismatic. Akerduana sheds the pride brought on by Warmaster's praise. Akerduana saw her father approaching with a proud smile on his face. He told Warmaster and Abaddon, my swordsmanship is far from perfect, Thierry is better than me. Open black lens bracket Thierry. Close black lens bracket. Abbot chewed on the name in his mind. Look at your good-for-nothing son. A contemptuous voice echoed in Fulgrim's mind. A flicker of disappointment crossed Fulgrim's eyes. He murmured to himself, he needs help, and I will help him. A moment later, Horus watched as the magnificent Falcon shuttle took off from the deck and spoke to the Primarch servants Merost and Abaddon beside him. In the past, I didn't understand why Fulgrim preferred Akerduana, but now I do. Inside the Falcon shuttle, Eidolon looked at Akerduana and then asked Fulgrim a question. Father, what is our next task? The imperial world of the Kalanide system has been invaded by the Greenskins, and we must liberate the people who have fallen into this world from the vile claws of the aliens. I will reunite with Ferris, and the Emperor's children will join forces with the Steel Hand. Greater than. Chapter 937 Hathor is surprisingly powerful. Gloriana-class battleships and most of the Thousand Suns warships. Ultima Segmentum, Prospero. Tisca's Pyramid of Photep, Magnus walks toward the balcony. He leaned against the balcony railing, his elbows supporting his body, the cool sea breeze ruffling his hair. He looked down and saw 5 perfectly rounded mounds arranged in the golden ratio within the undulating park. The soldiers and civilians of Tisca were practicing Tai Chi as usual, calming their minds. They were completely unaware of the impending doom. The entire city of light is about to be destroyed because of the crimes he has committed. Magnus's gaze swept over the pyramidal towers of various schools of thought, and flames seemed to flicker within each polarization crystal. He had seen such a vision when he visited the Ocean of Souls, and now he understood the future it symbolized. Everything will return to dust. Magnus's sorrowful voice echoed as a voice sounded behind him. Uncertain. Magnus turned his head and saw the reflection of a single eye flashing on the bronze mirror. The shadow changes every moment, sometimes angry, sometimes mocking, sometimes arrogant, sometimes fickle. Many eyes, however, were simultaneously fixed on him with sly smiles. Is destroying me what you made your deal with me for? Destruction? Absolutely not. The shadow shouted. Magnus, you've always been my first choice. What's the first choice? Magnus asked. You have caused the eternal chaos of destruction and rebirth, the endless cycle of creation and annihilation, repeating endlessly without beginning or end. You have always been the first choice, Horus is the second choice. There are many other options like this, and Nimrod is one of them. Magnus shook his head. Nimrod won't make the same mistake I did. I am too confident. That's right. When I transformed your soul, you had become too powerful, forcing me to choose another target, the shadow said with a kind smile. But I always knew that you would eventually belong to me, and while doubtful eyes were cast upon you and your offspring, I was weaving corruption elsewhere. I am gratified to see that those who are blindly confident have ignited the wildfire of Mars. What are you? Magnus entered the room. You know what I am. The eyes in the mirror froze, then rotated and changed, finally transforming into a giant snake with colorful eyes and bright wings. Magnus recognized him, he had seen him in the Argos Mountains. He killed the other person, but obviously he didn't. I once called myself Crozo, the diffused devil, the abyss dweller, but those were just empty labels given to me by mortals. But the moment they open their mouths, the way they address each other is already outdated. I have existed since the beginning of time, and I have witnessed the end of the universe. Names are meaningless, for I am both everything and nothingness. He chuckled softly. In the impoverished dictionary of your young race, I should be called a god. It was you who saved my legion, Magnus said. Salvation. I merely postponed their doom, the shadow said. Now, this gift has expired. No. Please, please don't. Magnus cried. The time I have given you to have offspring comes at a price, and you will understand when you accept my gift. When you cried out into the depths of the ocean of souls, seeking a way to save your children, you offered your own soul to save them. Now it is time to fulfill your promise. Then take me away, spare my offspring, and let them serve the Emperor, Magnus said. You're all just drinking poison to quench your thirst, the shadow mocked. Why would you want them to serve someone who betrayed you? He shows you endless mysteries, but forbids you from getting involved. What father would open a big door and then command you not to go in? He is merely using your body to avoid his own destruction. You have already seen through his intentions. The image in the mirror changed again, and Magnus saw the golden throne within the electric arc. The wailing corpse sat atop it, its powerful body charred and ugly. The Emperor wants to imprison you there forever, to make you suffer constantly, to satisfy his selfish desires. Magnus looked away, but the shadow was still speaking, pulling his heart into the ocean of souls. You already know the truth about the apocalypse, your nemesis has set sail with his wolves. Magnus closed his eyes and gazed at the roaring waves. His single eye snapped open, and blazing flames erupted forth. A raging pillar of fire shot into the sky, far surpassing the fireworks of the Fire Phoenix Golden Tower, and molten glass shards rained down like raindrops. The wood and paper inside were burned to ashes, but the Book of Magnus remained unaffected. The bronze mirror evaporated, and the reflection faded. Outside the great door, the Sky Owl School, Grand Master of the Temple, on duty guarding it, was about to rush into the great door. Suddenly, his left arm was grabbed. Uthizar looked back and said, Hathor, I don't recommend you go in now. Dreamwalker, Hathor's eyes were deep, he could feel a mysterious power receding, and a chaotic storm churning in his mind. I need to know what happened to my father, Uthizar said. The Grand Master of the Temple from the Bright Feather School projected biochemical energy into Uthizar's palm, causing his body to stiffen as if petrified. Several seconds later, Uthizar's body trembled, and at the same time, Magnus's voice came from within. Hathor, Uthizar, come in. Hathor released Uthizar, who glared at him before quickly walking inside. Uthizar gazed at the ravaged ground and looked at Magnus with concern. Father. Magnus ascended to the highest level of mental state, shielding his mind and facing the Sky Owl School, the Grand Master of the Temple. He said calmly, I'm fine, it was just a little accident when I was testing the spell. Hathor then went inside and gazed at the Cyclops from a telepathist perspective. His eyes changed from blue to red, then to gray, and finally to black in a second. Something must be wrong. Hathor immediately recalled the Black Emperor's prophecy. The father witnessed the destruction of Prospero. Is he hiding something from us? Hathor suppressed the myriad thoughts churning within him and, without further hesitation, revealed the purpose of his meeting with Magnus. Father, your highest level rune command has ordered the 4 fleets in orbit to leave Prospero. Why? Uthizar asked, puzzled. We will be defenseless and unable to continue the Great Crusade. Open black lens bracket. There will be no future. Close black lens bracket. Magnus thought to himself, before we embark on our journey again, there are still many mysteries to master, which will take a considerable amount of time. Hathor gazed at Magnus with a probing look. His ever-changing single eye no longer flickered, but his gray-black pupil revealed a hint of foreboding. His eyes flickered, and he fabricated a lie. Alexandria IV is our most glorious achievement. Recently, it has been attacked by Eldar pirates and we need the strength of our fleet. Open black lens bracket. The 1,000 suns and I should leave something for the Empire. Close black lens bracket. Magnus nodded. Order the fleet containing the flagships Photep and Son of Prospero to proceed to Alexandria IV. Hathor suppressed the urge to smile. He had brought more than half of the fleet's strength under his control. Including the previous fleet and the power of the Cult of Destruction, he will control nearly 60% of the fleet. Please grant me your authorization. 3 days later, at Starport in Tizca. Trucks, supply trucks, baggage cars, and water tankers crisscrossed the port, emitting sharp horn blasts. Loaders, unloaders, and servitors are working non-stop. Their workload has doubled every day for the past 4 days. As Lemuel Gaumont walked among the crowd, spiritual readers could see the pale gray tension permeating the harbor. The port inspectors meticulously checked the passes and identification documents repeatedly, while the tower guards, wearing red coats, patrolled repeatedly. His friend Camille Chivany wore a light black low-cut dress with black lace trim on the neckline, cuffs, and hem. Grief filled their hearts as their other friend, the powerful prophet Psyker Callus Tower Ors, was ruthlessly used by the Thousand Sons as an expendable resource, her life force drained to foresee the future. Lemuel never expected that his teacher Ahriman would coldly issue the order despite their repeated pleas. Although his other mentor, Hather, spoke on his behalf, Ahriman was bound by the Primarch's orders, and even Chief Librarian did not change them. As the Thousand Sons roughly dragged them away from Ors, they caught a glimpse of the world's destruction. Determined to leave this place of sorrow, they soon found Mahawastu Karimachus, who also felt threatened. Behind the three followed 9 servitors, carrying heavy boxes filled with countless tomes, records, and articles written by Karamarchus during his time as Magnus's private remembrancer. Hather Mat stood in the shadows, the giant in crimson armor subconsciously ignored by everyone under the shroud of psychological invisibility. He gazed at the entrance to the passenger plane's tarmac where Gao Meng and his entourage finally arrived, where officials in blue robes verified the identities of each person. Lemuel tore a piece of paper from his notebook and handed it to the official. He projected his strong confidence into the other person's aura, and now it was time to test the results of his learning from Ahriman and Hather. Lady Asoka Bindusara and Lady Kumaradevi Chandra will be boarding the Setpaya Serene. He leaned closer to the official and lowered his voice, I am his humble servant. My master is used to Prospero's luxurious life. If we don't get a luxury jet, none of us will be happy. The official frowned as he stared at the permit, and Lemuel sensed that the other man was trying to discern its authenticity, so he increased his control over his spiritual energy. The official looked away from the document and entered a name into the data slate search bar. I didn't see your name. Please, double check. Lemuel intensified the impact of his mind manipulation, overwhelming the official's doubts with spiritual energy. The official nodded and gestured to the guards on either side of the pointed tower. They handed Lemuel 3 birth markers, each marked with an eye pattern. Hather nodded in satisfaction and strode toward the port's control room. He raised his hand and typed a series of runes on the keyboard in the control room. Amidst the billowing cold mist, the large door slid open. He walked into the main door, and only then did the officers on duty notice him for the first time. Lord Matt. Hather, with a smile on his face, walked into the control room amidst the respectful greetings of the crowd. He went to the control panel, gazed at the holographic image, and saw the Gloriana-class battleship. The Photep and the battleship Son of Prospero headed toward Mandeville Point at one end of the system, while the battleships Anchortow and Chimera headed toward the other. They were accompanied by assault cruisers and escort warships. Hather watched the warship sail out of the psionic array's detection range, a smile playing on his lips as it returned to the Bright Feather Tower. After setting up the Euclidean rune to isolate the warp, he prayed to the Black Emperor. Moments later, the black mist engulfed Hather, and he arrived in a mysterious kingdom. My lord, in accordance with your command, I have organized psychic craftsmen to excavate all the psychic crystals in the reflecting caves and send them to the cruisers of your legion. Lemuel Gaumont and his companions successfully escaped Prospero. I prevented Uthizar from entering, and I also dispatched 2 fleets, with the Photep and the Son of Prospero as their flagships, to Alexandria IV. Nimrod's eyes lit up. Open black lens bracket Hather is quite capable. It was worth it for me to help him become chief librarian. He actually managed most of the Thousand Sons warships, including the Gloriana-class battleship, close black lens bracket. Uthizar, close black lens bracket. You saved Uthizar's life, Nimrod said, digging into his memories. Your perception is correct. Magnus was in a state of mental shock at the time, and his mind was completely unguarded. Uthizar is the most skilled mind reader among the Thousand Sons. His ability in this area is no less than yours. He will uncover the truth Magnus is concealing. The wolves are attacking. Magnus is willing to accept punishment, but Uthizar is unwilling to see Prospero destroyed, and in order to stop him, the father will kill his son. Hather felt a chill run through him. Open black lens bracket. Fortunately, I have the gift of my lord, otherwise, if I had gone in with Uthizar, I would have become a corpse too. Close black lens bracket. Nimrod then recalled that after the great birthday celebration, the Photep disappeared, and Magnus's flagship became the Tiska's Revenge. Open black lens bracket Magnus, you're not entirely at a loss, at least you won't live with guilt forever, close black lens bracket. He knew that Magnus had been living in guilt and pain ever since he killed Uthazar. Greater than 938 Fulgrim, Nimrod actually broke through Silverhand's defense head-on. Open black lens bracket. Remember this website's domain. Taiwan Novel Network has a wide collection of books, twcon.com for all your reading needs. Close black lens bracket. The Kalanides Galaxy, pride of the Emperor. Fulgrim entered Phoenix Door and came to his lord, commander. He did not listen to his son's advice and issued orders directly. Eidolon will accompany me to the Iron Fist. Akerduana and Vespasian, you will each lead a team to land on planets 3 and 4 respectively and wipe out the Orc invaders. Akerduana paused, and Fulgrim turned around. The Blade of Paratine should not be bound by knowledge of court affairs, you should step onto the battlefield and behead the most powerful Orc, the warrior. Akerduana nodded, and he led Solomon Demeter out of Phoenix Door. As he walked down the avenue, his gaze swept over the pillars. Solomon, I want you to watch over your father and the Vespasian. Solomon paused, then took another step. 3 seconds later, I understand. Fulgrim walked toward the black iron door of the Iron Fist's forging hall, his flowing cloak billowing in the wind with the heat emanating from the furnace. He paused briefly as he walked past the main door. He knew that stepping into it might mean parting ways with his closest brother. But the War Master's great cause will succeed, and he must not miss the opportunity to achieve perfection. He has promised War Master that he can bring Phoenix to War Master without firing a single shot. He and Phoenix share a common history and a brotherhood that even the furnace cannot melt. It is impossible for Gorgon of Medusa not to see the legitimacy of the War Master's cause. The veil of lies has been lifted, and he has a responsibility to expose his father's lies to his beloved Phoenix. Fulgrim touched the fiery sword at his waist. The absence of the blade of Rahl made him feel uneasy. However, he needs to carry the weapon forged by Phoenix in the Urals furnace. Not carrying the fiery sword would displease Phoenix. As the boots landed, Fulgrim looked at the Warhammer, the skullbreaker he had forged for Phoenix. He opened his arms wide. Phoenix, it's so good to see you again. Phoenix embraced him, his silver hand patting the fur cloak. He took a step back and asked in confusion. What brought you to the Kalines system? Is our war progressing too slowly? No. War Master is proud of your speed of conquest. The War Master did not say this, but the diplomatically astute Fulgrim knew that appropriate flattery would be beneficial to the following conversation. Did you hear that? Phoenix raised his silver hand. The War Master brought us glory. Glory belongs to Iron Hands. Primarch's attendant Garibo Santo raised his arms, and the Moloch Terminators shouted, Glory to the Iron Hands. Phoenix's silver hand landed on Fulgrim's shoulder. Brother, besides passing on the glory, what else did you bring? The truth, Fulgrim said. This concerns the future of the Great Crusade. The air was heavy and still, and even the furnace seemed to have cooled down. Phoenix solemnly said, let's talk in my forge. The two Primarchs walked side by side into Phoenix's private domain, which, unlike the palaces of other Primarchs, was a furnace. The gleaming walls were forged from smooth black basalt and adorned with silver, hand-forged weapons, armor, and instruments. Fulgrim looked at a fluttering flaming banner hanging beside a finely crafted pistol. The barrel is engraved with a roaring dragon, and the brass and silver blend of the gun body is the finest craftsmanship Fulgrim has ever seen. It's more like a work of art than a weapon. Before Vulcan led his army into the acidic planet, he visited this place and said, this is a magical place, only ancient words can describe its magnificence. Phoenix's voice rose in a tone heavy with lead. I forged this pistol for it. Why is it still here? Fulgrim asked, puzzled. Phoenix spread his silver hands. He likes to work with metal. He doesn't believe in anything that hasn't been hammered and baked in a furnace. He said he liked the way Nimrod forged weapons with golden flames. As Phoenix spoke, he walked to the center of the forging room, next to the huge black iron anvil. I forged the finest armor for Nimrod, and I gave you my best weapon, which is also my finest creation. He glanced at the flaming sword at Fulgrim's waist. Now tell me, what you just said concerns the future of the Great Crusade. When was the last time you saw your father? I mean, in person. A long time ago, 52 years ago. Phoenix's silver coin eyes rolled. Why are you asking this? Fulgrim walked to the anvil. The last time I saw him was at Ullanor, at the War Master's coronation ceremony. He told us that he believed it was time to hand over the Great Crusade to his descendants, and then return to Terra to complete a greater mission. I cried then. That was a great victory. Phoenix nodded sadly. I was fighting in the keloid at the time and couldn't participate in person, which is my only regret. I was unable to say goodbye to my father properly. That was the second most heartbreaking moment of my life. Fulgrim's voice choked with emotion. Phoenix took a step toward him, Silvercoin's eyes fixed intently on Fulgrim. You just said that was the second heartbreak moment, what could be worse than that? Of course, it was when I learned that my father had betrayed us, abandoned us, and ascended to godhood alone, Fulgrim said angrily. Fulgrim, Phoenix shouted. Are you insane? Betray us. Ascend to godhood. Do you know what you're saying? Of course I know. Fulgrim walked up to Phoenix. Horus showed me the truth, he was spreading self-worship. He lied to all of us. We are nothing but tools for him to conquer the galaxy and become a god on his own. Fulgrim revealed his purpose, then let out a blissful, liberating laugh. Phoenix pushed his brother away, saying, all I see is betrayal. My brother, Fulgrim pleaded. Adeptus Mechanicus has pledged his support to Warmaster, as have many of our brothers. War is imminent, and flames will engulf the galaxy. When the war ends, those who stand on the side of error will never receive any mercy. Phoenix, for the sake of our brotherhood, I beg you to join me in Warmaster. Brotherhood. Phoenix roared. The moment you decided to become a traitor, there was no longer any friendship between us. Phoenix roared and raised the Skullbreaker, while Fulgrim raised his sword to block the hammer blow from Phoenix. We are sworn brothers, and I have not lied to you. I know you're not lying, and that's why you have to die, Phoenix said sadly. The two weapons roared simultaneously, attacking their creator. Exploding flames filled the forging room, and the humming sound made the anvil vibrate incessantly. Fulgrim leapt into the air, his burning sword drawing a fiery arc in the air. Phoenix raised his warhammer to meet the attack, but Fulgrim's blade rolled over the hilt and pierced Phoenix's face. You challenged me to a duel, but I refused. Now, it's time for you to know that I am the more perfect one. Akurduana, you will know that if Nimrod can defeat Phoenix, so can I. The burning blade sliced through Phoenix's cheek, scorching his skin black. Phoenix experienced a brief moment of blindness and stumbled back a step. Fulgrim followed closely, raining down left punches on Phoenix's face. The right-hand blade traced an arc, aiming straight for Phoenix's neck. Phoenix raised his silver left hand and caught the falling blade. The force of the impact made Fulgrim's arm go numb, and he pulled the blade with all his might. But the silver hand gripped the sword's edge tightly, and vortexes appeared on it. The silver hand quickly transformed from a solid to a liquid state. Fulgrim felt the metal longsword in his hand begin to liquefy, flames pulsating under his silver control. Phoenix opened his eyes, flames igniting within his liquefied pupils, and he screamed. I forged this blade, and it is my turn to end it. Boom! The sword of blazing fire exploded, turning into a ball of flames. Fulgrim and Phoenix were blasted away. He gripped the hilt of the destroyed fiery sword and gazed at Phoenix, who lay unconscious on the ground. He looked at the pair of silver hands that radiated devastating energy, and thought, it's unbelievable that Nimrod actually broke through the silver hands, defense head-on. If Phoenix hadn't crushed the fiery sword, and the explosion had pierced his defenses, I could have. No, I can do it. When Fulgrim looked at the skullcrusher lying on the ground, walked over, and picked up the weapon he had forged for his brother. He looked at Phoenix, who was lying on the ground, unable to get up. After hesitating for a moment, he hoisted the Skullbreaker onto his shoulder and walked proudly to Phoenix with the stride of a victor. Phoenix propped himself up on his elbows. You'd better kill me, because next time I'll definitely take your life. Fulgrim lifted the Skullbreaker, and Warhammer trembled in his hand. His dark eyes met the burning silver coin's eyes, and he put down Warhammer. Phoenix, I am willing to live and die with you. Why won't you do the same for me? Phoenix spat, you're not my brother. A muffled whisper reached Fulgrim's ear, kill him. I will always be your brother, Fulgrim said. Warhammer swung his sword down, hitting Phoenix in the chin. Phoenix slammed onto the furnace floor with a thud. Ignoring the screams from afar, Fulgrim tossed the hilt of the fiery sword onto Phoenix and turned to walk toward the great door of the foundry. The large door opened, and Santo saw Fulgrim carrying Warhammer as he walked out. Phoenicia! Eidolon shouted. The Phoenix Guard activated Disruption Field, unexpectedly slashing at Moloch's Terminators. Thump thump thump. 10 corpses were smashed to the ground. Eidolon's throat twitched, and the modified organ emitted a piercing shriek. The finely crafted power sword swiftly thrust out, piercing Santo's armor and penetrating his chest. Fulgrim opened the communication channel and issued commands. Every warship of the 52nd Expeditionary Fleet, immediately execute the attack order. Target, the warship, Iron Hands. Fire. Greater than. 939. Another chance for the bull, another 10 mouths of Emperor's children. The Imperial Pride launched a long-prepared barrage from its flanks, catching the Iron Fist off guard. The escort ships of Emperor's children also infiltrated the Steel Hand fleet according to the pre-arranged plan. On both sides of the magnificent hull, massive cannons unleashed a devastating barrage of gunfire. The purple-gold fleet swiftly swept past the Black Fleet, inflicting devastating damage on its former brother fleet and crippling the counterattack capabilities of most of its ships. Only the Iron Fist, a Queen Glorious-class battleship, with its heavy hull ablaze with burning, furious flames, launched a counterattack against the Imperial Pride. The precise artillery fire guided by the imitation chamber struck the pure and beautiful hull of the Imperial Pride, leaving behind huge war scars. Please remember Taiwan Novel Network for the fastest chapter updates, ttfj.tw. Father. Vespasian barged into Fulgrim's cabin without regard for etiquette, his steps hurried past the unfinished canvas. He saw his father looking at him with a gloomy expression and slowed his pace. A flicker of brilliance crossed Fulgrim's pale face. How's the battle progressing? Vespasian took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. Victory is imminent, but what are you doing? Launching an attack on Steel Hand. Why? Fulgrim stared at Vespasian. This is Warmaster's command, and Ferris refuses to execute Warmaster's command. He also betrayed the oath he made to me in the Urals. I must punish them. Lord Ferris betrayed you and Warmaster. How could that be? The Lord Commander asked, frowning in disbelief. Why didn't you tell us this in the pre-war Royal Court Council? Our slit-mouth military deployments are all aimed at the Greens. Vespasian, are you questioning me? Fulgrim asked sharply. I obey Warmaster's orders. This battle was not against the Greenskins from the very beginning. What is it about? Vespasian asked uneasily, his father seeming so unfamiliar. To correct the terrible mistakes we have made, and to purge the cowards from our ranks who lack the courage to do what is necessary. Fulgrim stared at Vespasian. A bloody reckoning is about to begin. My dear son, we will cross the Lubicon River and take our first step on the path opened up by Warmaster. He said excitedly, Warmaster will create a new imperial order for us, a perfect and glorious kingdom. Father. Just as Vespasian was about to press further, Fulgrim interrupted him. Vespasian, I want to show you a painting. Vespasian was led to the canvas by his father, but the close contact did not bring him warmth. His body went cold as he stared at the horrifying image. The father in the painting is distorted and deformed, his face is so thin that he is skin and bones, and his mouth is twisted and ugly. The armor was covered with strange symbols, resembling foul-smelling maggots that writhed and clung to it. Vespasian felt soul-wrenching pain and wanted to look away from the evil. But his father's hand hitting his back forced him to stare at the portrait. He stared at the eyeless eyes and felt that the portrait was also staring at him with a twisted and arrogant smile. Submit to me. Expose your deepest desires to me. Vespasian felt the ugly head peeling away like an onion, tearing open his soul and exploring his heart. Bang! Vespasian's right knee slammed into the ground, but he drew his sword, braced himself, and did not fall. He felt every corner of his heart being torn apart by the claws of evil, digging out all the pain and bitterness imprinted deep within his soul by the Great Expedition. The deaths of his comrades, the fear and anxiety of the legion's fall. Vespasian resolutely averted his gaze from the painting, leapt up, and swung his sword at the evil artwork. He's worthless, kill him. A terrifying voice echoes from the painting. Vespasian. Fulgrim drew his silver sword. Desire gives people eternal pleasure, those who have no desires are useless. It's such a pity. You could have chosen to stand by my side, but you resisted the path to becoming more perfect. You didn't accept the transformation to perfection, nor did you use drugs of pleasure. The mouth pests, in the phrase, you have proven yourself to be emperor's children, must be eradicated. When the magnificent sword blade was blocked. Akerduana. Fulgrim withdrew his sword and stared at his beloved daughter, who had walked up to Vespasian. Father, what are you doing? Akerduana stared intently at him. You swing your sword at your own offspring, do you want to become a beast like the anger you speak of? Kill them. A terrifying voice came from the painting. Absolutely not. He is my most beloved son. Fulgrim placed the sword on the weapon rack beside him and put it in his mouth along with the skullbreaker warhammer he had forged. Vespasian betrayed me, betrayed Warmaster. But I've decided to give him another chance, to take him away, before I change my mind. Fulgrim stared at Vespasian's departing figure and shook his head regretfully. How perfect, Emperor's children, would be if warriors like him fought for Warmaster. But he was too stubborn, he resisted the enhancement surgery and refused to let his soldiers experience the intoxicating pleasure brought by Fabius chemical stimulants. He refused to embrace the future, and he and his warriors would die in Istvan's death trap. As Fulgrim pondered, the communicator buzzed. Father, we have breached Iron Fist's shields and are about to sink the flagship of Steel Hand. No, cease the attack, Fulgrim shouted. Turn to Mandeville and head immediately to Istvan. We're joining Warmaster's counterinsurgency team. On the central avenue, Vespasian felt a chill run through him. The cold, sharp light of the silver sword and the distorted glow of the purple gemstone on its hilt intertwined in his mind. Vespasian said painfully, he has changed. He is no longer the wise original that established the royal court, listened to advice, and made wise decisions. Akerduana nodded silently. He silently boarded the Stormbird and returned to his warship. The entire fleet of Emperor's children abandoned the warships of Steel Hand and headed straight for Mandeville. At the same moment, Akerduana drew his sword in the cabin and quickly struck the Euclid symbol on the ground, then knelt down to pray to the Black Emperor. My lord, Akerduana knelt down. Ever since father drew that silver sword in the temple of the Rawl people, even his mouth has started to change. That's how it happened. I saved the Vespasian. I am certain that my father wanted to kill Vespasian at the time. Nimrod nodded slightly. What Akerduana said was largely the same as he remembered, with two main differences. One thing is that Solomon Demeter did not incur jealousy for his perfect performance in the war against the alien divers with the Iron Hand. Fulgrim did not deliberately withdraw the first and third companies in subsequent battles, thus putting the second company in danger. Nimrod had anticipated this, since although he was now the second company commander, the Lord's commander was Akerduana. With Fulgrim's beloved eldest son still alive, Fulgrim would naturally not target the second company commander he relied on. Another thing is that he remembered Vespasian was killed by Fulgrim on his way to the Kalanides system, and the warriors under his command who refused to use the Fabius bear drug were the main force purged on Istvan III. Akerduana is indeed Fulgrim's darling. Vespasian, who had miraculously survived, also seemed to be disappointed in his gene father. Another chance for cattle. 10 lords and commanders, Vespasians, and 10 more of the Emperor's children, that's at least 10,000 people. Thinking this, Nimrod said, the Warmaster has betrayed us. Upon hearing this, Akerduana was first taken aback, then a sharp glint appeared in his eyes. The Emperor's choice of Horus as his warrior was indeed a mistake. He should choose my lord. Our lord will then be able to use the Warmaster's power to accomplish the goals he seeks to achieve on Earth. Fulgrim has already joined forces with Horus. The silver sword he drew from the Temple of Lar harbors a greater demon of Slanesh. As Nimrod spoke, he packaged the knowledge related to Chaos and the Four Hawkers, especially information related to Slanesh, and transmitted it to Akerduana's brain through his thought pulse. Countless chaotic thoughts flashed through Akerduana's mind. As he absorbed them, he recalled the silver sword blade inlaid with amethyst. Although it is beautiful, it has an eerie feel to it. It turns out that a demon resides within it. He also thought of the ugly painting he had seen not long ago. My lord, is there a way to awaken father from the temptation of the greater demon of Slanesh? Akerduana looked at the Black Emperor deep within the black mist. Before Fulgrim fell, it was still very popular. He was particularly fond of Akerduana. That's good. I still need Akerduana to remind Perturabo not to fall into Fulgrim's ascension plot. Nimrod said as he pondered. You can try speaking, but be careful. He remembered that Fulgrim had been filled with remorse for killing his beloved brother Ferris. The greater demon of Slanesh took over his body, while Fulgrim remained trapped inside the painting. Nimrod doesn't know whether the changes he made will lead to other changes. He cautioned, when advising Fulgrim, be careful not to go too far. Avoid provoking his attack. Akerduana felt light pierce through the darkness, showering upon him and dispelling the gloom. Thank you for your concern, I will definitely pay more attention. Nimrod's spiritual influence reached Lucius's spiritual sphere, where he found him alone in his dormitory, wiping his sword. Nimrod then pulled Lucius into the kingdom of disorder. Lucius looked around and found himself in a mysterious land. My lord, Horus and Fulgrim have devised a plan, along with World Eaters and the Death Guard, to purge disloyal members of the Legion at Istvan III. Lucius, you must remind the other loyalists when they give the orders. Nimrod decided to remind the loyalists while taking the opportunity to incite some of the Nimrods. Afterwards, you will go to Terra to report. He must inform Terra so that he can take timely action, thus weakening Horus's ability to fight him. At the same time, Lucius and his team will also be an important force for him to realize the Mouth series of plans in the Sunstar region. But you must be careful not to make direct contact with Micardo and Dorn. Nimrod remembered that after Nathaniel Garo's perilous voyage to the solar system, he delivered news of Horus's betrayal. But he was subsequently imprisoned in the Silent Sisters' fortress on the moon, where he endured long periods of torture and interrogation. Nimrod would naturally not allow his people to suffer, nor would he allow them to become prisoners and disrupt his plans. Follow the will of the Lord, Lucius replied excitedly. Serving the Black Emperor, who was stronger and more perfect than his father, offered a brighter future than remaining with the fallen emperor's children. 940 The future of Thousand Suns depends on our Lord. The first wave of bombardment from space wolves tore through the all-encompassing fog before dawn, abruptly descending upon Prospero. The orbital defense system issued no warnings, and all scanning instruments remained silent. The psychic crystals of the Black Raven School showed no signs of destruction. The torpedoes rained down on the missile platforms and artillery arrays in their tracks without any obstruction, and most of the defense systems were reduced to ruins before they could even fire a single shot. The sparse and hasty counterattack was quickly swallowed up. Without encountering any counterattack, the punitive fleet crashed through the sea of fire and gradually regrouped. Iron-gray warships deployed in attack formation in synchronized orbit, with thousands of weapons aimed at the planet below. Hrothgar fired the first shot, a blindingly blue beam of light piercing the planet's surface. The Nidhogg immediately opened fire, its plasma energy beam sweeping across the port northeast of Tizca. Seawater at a depth of 600 meters evaporates into high-temperature steam, and a thick, scalding fog blankets the sea surface, filled with toxic gases. The hypersonic bomb penetrated the atmosphere, triggering multiple sonic booms that woke up the sleeping residents. Lava bombs roared as they crashed into the mountains surrounding Tizca, sending mountain ranges crumbling into the rising mushroom clouds. Gravity bombs and kinetic warheads rained down, razing the new strongholds that Order Shadow had established after clearing Soul-Eating Peak to the ground. Energy beams rained down on the towering tree canopy and the ruins far from Tizca. The terrifying explosive energy spread rapidly, tearing apart spirit-eating bees and leaving ominous dark green shadows on the ground. Countless relentless bombardments relentlessly pounded the land of Prospero. On the devastated surface of the planet, not a single building in Tizca, the core area of the bombing, was damaged. Although Magnus ensured that his offspring knew nothing of punishment, the Thousand Sons of the Falcon School maintained a psychic shield over Tizca at the outer deity night. In the city system across the Empire, the Falcon School's psychic shield is only comparable to the fortress-level energy shield used by Nimrod's territories. The invisible barrier is tougher than the thickest plate of adamantite and stronger than layers upon layers of void shield. Even Magnus could not disarm this defense without being detected. The beam of light struck the shimmering psychic shield like the finger of a god. Rumble. Sparks flew from the Falcon Tower, and static electricity leapt through the air, drawing brilliant electric snakes. Inside the Falcon Tower, the 14,000 suns who were maintaining the psychic shield exploded into clouds of blood mist. A radiant light burst forth from within, tearing through the gray sky of Tizca at dawn. Every second, several thousand suns from the Falcon School burn out their lives. The residents of Tizca came out of their homes and looked up at the sky in confusion. A blinding beam of energy roared and exploded through the sky, crashing into an invisible barrier and creating ominous ripples. Inside the bright feather gold tower, Chief Librarian Hather Matt raised his hand and placed it on the reflecting caves. The psychic crystal was used to create the giant eye. A dazzling beam of light shot from the oval-shaped crystal eyes, striking the golden dome of the tower. The light pierced through the bright feather gold lettering of the tower, soared into the sky, and then dispersed into streams of light. Light scattered and flew, entering the Pyramid of Photep and the other four major schools' pyramid towers, as well as other secret meeting pyramid towers. Hather felt the resonance of the psychic crystal emanating from each of the pyramid towers, and he spoke, "Father, your offspring need your guidance to overcome this crisis." The crystal hummed, and Magnus's voice rang out. "My son, this is our punishment, and we must accept it." "What punishment?" asked the Grand Master of the Temple of the Black Raven School. Ahriman asked in confusion. "Who is attacking us?" "Leman Russ and his wolves, the Imperial Guard, and the Sisters of Silence," Magnus said calmly. Open black lens bracket. Indeed, our Lord's prophecy has come true, the false emperor's punishment, close black lens bracket. Magnus offered no resistance, he disbanded the fleet and concealed the prophecy of the Black Raven School. Hather thought to himself, "Why? What crime have we committed?" Ahriman pressed. "I was the one who started this, and my end has come," Magnus said guiltily. "Leman Russ hates us, but he doesn't dare to launch an attack on his own," Ahriman said. "The only possibility is that the order came from the Emperor. What are you hiding from us?" His tone was no longer respectful. "When you saved us, you made a deal with the Ocean of Souls, and today is the price you pay." "You're right," Magnus replied. "I made a pact with the devil in order to save my offspring. I thought I had the upper hand, but from beginning to end, I was just a puppet being played with and manipulated by the evil god." Hather's eyes flashed, open black lens bracket. "The Black Emperor's power saved me without any cost, close black lens bracket. Only gods can fight against gods." The future of Thousand Suns depends on our Lord. He questioned, so, we must accept destruction. I have lost over 400 warriors from the Falcon School, and the psychic shield will soon be difficult to maintain. Grand Master of the Temple, Francis Towerka of the Falcon School, cried out anxiously. Lower the shields, the wolves have broken free, Magnus said. None of us will be destroyed. Since the vicious dogs want to fight, I'll fight them, Caliphus roared. I want them to see for themselves how Fire Phoenix School fights. No, Magnus shouted. The forces of darkness desire for the two legions to fight each other to the death, to be weakened by hatred before the impending Great War begins. We cannot allow the conspiracy to succeed, the Emperor needs his loyal wolves. We must accept our fate and let destruction come. Ahriman shouted, you think it's nobler to accept your fate, but it's just cowardly folly. Hather's crystals shone brightly, as Chief Librarian proclaimed. The Thousand Suns will fight. Brothers, are you of one mind with me? The Fire Phoenix is of one heart with you. Caliphus's voice was like an explosive burst of flames. Sky Owl is with you. The young Uthazar said. The Black Crow will fight against the invaders. Falcon will definitely fight. Tower said. The Great Library will not be defiled by wolves. Shouted Anku Enan, the guardian of the Great Library. The Seventh Society is ready. High Inspector Phil Torin gripped his staff tightly. The recruits will grow into true Thousand Suns in battle. Said Olamagma, the company commander of the Eighth Society. The monks of the Kennethal Sword Order, the twin swords of psionic energy are drawn. The voice of Sanacht, the first swordsman of the Thousand Suns, was sharp. I have awakened the slumbering warrior of the Jackal's house, said Hydra Tomarek, the guardian of the Jackal Order, in a deep voice. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.